Here we go.
All right. Welcome, Awaken Dreams Synergy. The whole point of awakening is that we can awaken to the brilliance of life, breathe it in, and come into a deeper awareness of what the potential of the dreams that are circulating through us are. So when we dream, it's an idea, a feeling, a grace that is waiting to come forth and percolate. So that's why this continues to be Awakening Dream Synergy and not shortened, even though we keep on wanting to shorten it, because it's about synergizing these dreams that are inside of us and awakening to them and really bringing them to life. So this is the idea of Awakening Dream Synergy, is that every single one of us has a dream and that we're linked to our dreams, and that the awakening of it gives us the opportunity to synergize with them. So that's the point of these calls, is to invite in people to present the dreams, the creations that they're making for a new earth, thriving life. And it comes to this spark within the heart and it connects with all the other sparks. So that's why we invite such amazing people into this space. And we're really happy to have Bret and Andrea here of Togetherland and Life, Together Life Systems, and the Holosourcing model. That sounds very exciting. I actually have been waiting for them to come online since the beginning, because Bret really inspired me by a lot of his work. And when I first was introduced to his work, I just gobbled it up. I read every single paper that was on that Dropbox. I was just like, oh, here it is. And it was together, and it's so beautiful. So I'm really happy to meet Andrea finally. Welcome, Andrea. It's so great to have you here at Awaken Dream Synergy, and we're so honored to have your presence, both of you, and to continually welcoming in the dream synergy that we're awakening together. And the purpose of this call, or the way that we go with the call, is we have the people who are doing their presentations, and Andrea said it would take probably about 40 minutes, and just let them go through it and let them lead the call. If they want to have interaction, they'll let us know, but every once in a while I might try to jump in as a moderator if someone kind of is taking over the conversation and maybe not leading it in towards what we're talking about, which is the presentation. So we really want to focus on the presenter's work, and so that we can get to know the dream really deeply, and so that we can see how we fit in their puzzle, how we can help the synergy happen, and how we can help them awaken, but also awaken with them. So calling upon ourselves to see where we may be able to be an extra seed of light, or even like stoke the seed of light that they're creating, and the codes of light in life and humanity. So the idea is to listen to them, and then we can ask questions that are in resonance with what their creation is, in asking them how we can help facilitate or get clarity on what they're creating. And then we can drop into a more of a space of how do we synergize? What is my piece a part of this? And so we're gonna do our best to moderate and remind us to stay focused and aware. And today we're gonna start out with a question, and then at the end we're going to have an integrating and unifying meditation. So if anyone feels called to do like a 2 to 3 minute meditation at the end, let us know at the end, because you might be inspired throughout the call and find a way that you would like to integrate the information so that we can leave the call in grace. And we also may have time to have a few more updates and talk about what's going on in other groups we may want to join, or groups that are interesting things that are happening in the groups. Links, please ask questions in the if you can't hold on to your question or your thought, please put it in the chat. And you also may add links to the chat and have little private conversations. But remember, if you're chatting privately in the background, that does end up in the chat record. So we are going to start sharing the chat record so we can have the chats available with the links and the information. So just keep that in mind. You are being watched, but in grace of the synergy of awakening to the dream. And we want to share all of that grace with each other. And that said, I'm so excited to hear about Togetherland, Together Life Systems, and Holosource model, because I've heard so much and I was so inspired. And when I first met Bret, and or was introduced to Bret through Josh, thank you, Josh, I was, and through another group of people who I actually have not yet invited in, and we will be welcoming them in as soon as we get our onboarding process. So there's still more people that we've in this world who are wonderfully exciting to synergize with. So in that, Togetherland, what does together mean? So the question of the day is, what does synergizing, life thriving together mean for you? And let's have a moment of silence to really think about that and consider that. And let's close our eyes. And if someone will time us for 2 minutes, I'll be looking at the clock too. Let's have a moment. Wonderful. As we all consider what it is to be together, to create together, to live life together, to be inspired, come alive together. Thank you for being here together around the world. We're doing it. Welcome, Bret and Andrea. If you'd like to go ahead and introduce yourself and what you're offering, we are long waiting and love to hear from you.
Well, first of all, it's just a delight to be here with everybody. I'm usually locked in a cupboard. I have lots of friends here who are like, oh, probably thinking she's finally come out. I'm due a conversation with so many of you. So this has landed beautifully, and hopefully I can update everybody at the same time and to share where we're at these days, which we haven't done for a long time, and do it with a lot of people who I consider to be our resonant field. I know the people I do know in here, there's really strong resonance. So thank you, Denise, for inviting us to do that. And on this topic of synergy, it's interesting, you know, that this is the focus of this particular session today, because Bret was just saying to me he has to do a dip now, because I use the word synergy so often that he does dips every time the word is said, because he figures he's going to get strong that way. So it's definitely something close to our heart. You'll see that as we begin to present what we're doing. And actually, this reminds me, now I'm here, of when we were in actual hub community spaces, we created something we called the Synergy Lounge. And the Synergy Lounge was a time where people came to present and they got everybody's undivided attention. It was their turn in the spotlight. And that was important because it's super crucial we really deeply receive each other and our visions, because synergy can't happen without that. So thank you, Denise. I feel like you've created another version of the Synergy Lounge here. It's great to see it happening. So obviously I'm Andrea and this is Bret. I'm going to walk you through a presentation and Bret's going to be jumping in too. Do you want to say anything else before we get started, Bret?
I just want to say she hasn't been locked in a closet due to anything that I've been doing. She's just introverted and always working on things. So that there's nothing strange going on there. And I just want to say hi to everyone, and obviously deep gratitude to Denise and Mark and everyone who's been holding space and doing this week after week and creating the resonant field and so many familiar faces. And I guess I actually know most people. I've been on a couple of calls. So thank you everyone for listening today. And I love you all and respect everything you're all doing to make the world an awesome, more beautiful place. So yeah.
All right, so I'm going to jump in. Maybe Bret, we're gonna like do a tag team thing. Mainly me leading, and Bret, maybe we can keep an eye on the time.
Oh yeah, can somebody please tell us when it's been 35 minutes and we'll see how far we've gotten. So as most of you might expect or have experience with, we don't have an actual presentation that we just default to that we're like expert at doing. So like we've thrown this together and it's a massive thing. So we'll just do our best to give this sort of high level overview, and then hopefully the Q&A will help create some more opportunities to discuss and share things. So we'll do our best. It's like a massive thing that would normally take, I don't know. It's just hard to come up with an elevator pitch kind of thing. So yeah, just give us a sign about 35 minutes or whatever, so we know where we're at.
Can everybody see the screen share okay before I get? Yeah,
yes.
It's doing okay. All right, and I'm just going to pull a few, just doing some stuff at my end so I can see my art. It's such a shame when we start presenting, I can't see all your faces anymore. I like to stay connected, but I'm just going to swallow that one. Alrighty, so let's get started. So you want to start with something?
No, just say.
Alrighty,
like
we are off. Bret likes this picture. I don't know what I meant to say about it, but I'm sure all of you can see. Actually, I'll start by talking about, we're about to jump into who we are. And Symphonics is a new name for us. We have formerly been known for many years as the S7 Foundation. Some of you know us that way. This is a new naming of the same thing. Chris has now left us, for those of you that knew us as a so Symphonics represents our new energy. And I think it was Lumi who messaged me, who instantly got that idea of the symphony or the symphonics of co-creation. And we're going to get onto like what is synergy and what is together and so forth. But for us, co-creation is very much about, and Sherry's on this call, Barbara Marks Hubbard, who we work with many times, talked about this a lot, the unique self symphony. So when all us come together in our unique diversity, we come together into a greater harmonic, which to me is what Symphonics is about, and resonance and coherence and frequency. So we'll be getting onto that. Background stuff. We just wanted to set a bit of context. So I've just introduced who we are, Symphonics, and that's just Bret and I as an organisation. We're part of something that we've been naming for quite a few years called Together. And Together is an emergent phenomena. It's not an umbrella organisation. It's not even an organisation at all. It's the vision of many, many agents coming together to form a type of super organism, or what we call a UFO, an unnameable, universally united fractal organism. Now, you'll get used to this as we speak. We have a lot of new language, and in time, you know, we need to work on how we deal with that, but it's important because we're dealing with new concepts. So Together is the idea of that emerging new civilization based out of lots of synergistic, kind of made up of lots of synergistic co-creators. But Bret, did you want to say something?
No, I mean, other than a UFO is for us sort of the evolution of DAOs and decentralized human organizations. So for me, the cutting edge of self-organization on the planet based on co-creation would be a UFO, and obviously a little bit of homage to Buckminster Fuller and Spaceship Earth. And it's freaking really fun to say we're creating a UFO and this is disclosure, and we're the ones we've been waiting for. So since I like to tell stories, I'm really happy that I'm part of a UFO compared to a DAO.
So these are just some background things. Another thing that we like to present is we work through what we call an RDDE approach, which is a research, design, development, embodiment approach. So a lot of what we're going to share to you about here, even though it sounds abstract, it's emerging from working in community for many years, observing patterns and designing from a space of experience. And that is a principle that we embody in all our work. We have never sought to build technologies from theory and from the mind. We've always sought to practice them in social settings so we can then put them into tech, which we'll come on to. But Bret, any more about this one?
Just the point that what we have right now, which we'll be getting into, is a blueprint overall. And just to reaffirm, it's not just a vapid blueprint that's only in theory, like a house. We've started building some of the house. So it's not just like maybe this house will be nice, or it's just literally a schematic. So on one hand, this is a lot of blueprint type work because we've been dipping into so many pieces. We couldn't specialize in any one of those specific sectors or innovations because what we were looking at was specializing in bringing all those pieces together and creating a system that would allow everyone to bring their genius. So it's definitely a blueprint type of offering, but it also has been prototyped in different ways, in little ways, all the different modules and things we'll get into. And I like this word praxis, which I only learned last year. So practical application of a theory. So for us, co-creation isn't just a word in a book or some kind of thing that we just talk about at parties. It's a lifestyle and it's a worldview. And it's something we've been trying to practice as well.
The next part is about, it should be obvious, it should be self-evident, is that we hold a co-creation worldview. But what we've begun to notice over especially the last year, is that many people speak about co-creation, but we all mean something different by it. And there are other memes in the space, such as regenerative, and I'm trying to think of some other ones, but there are many memes flying around, but we're particularly focused on co-creation. So we are part of a larger group right now examining what is co-creation from an integral perspective, i.e. co-creation is a social thing. Many of us here experience co-creation at the intersubjective level, like, co-creation, we come into our hearts, we're creating together. But science is also starting to take a worldview of co-creation, like all life is creating together. If we think of the resonant field, which most of us are probably familiar with here, we're seeing that all life affects all life. So we have worked with this working group to distill what we believe co-creation is technically, and it's really that all life is creating together, and therefore if all life is creating together, how do we create all win outcomes and understand the relationality? So nothing occurs in a vacuum, everything is created in synergy, Denise. So if it's therefore in synergy, how do we make those synergies optimal? And we are we come from the school originally of Barbara Marx Hubbard on this front. And again, Sherry's here and is familiar with a lot of this, but we were named S7 after the 7 S's of co-creation. So we believe that once we move into operating through co-creative values, particular values and qualities and characteristics start to come into the foreground. So those 7 S's for us have been those things: synergy, top of the list, syntropy, moving to higher degrees of order and optimization, spontaneity, supersex, self-creativity, synchronicity, and syntony. Now, I'm sure we could do a whole presentation on them. I'm just going to leave it for you. And if anybody wants to explore those 7 S's, we can maybe do that at the end. But these are things that we think about a lot in our work. You'll see it. We also see a new type of human emerging with the co-creative worldview. So the human being is coming to a certain degree of, we'll talk about coherence a lot in relation to co-creation. So for us, coherence is moving into harmony with ourselves so therefore we can move into harmony with life, which for anybody who is a fan of Erwin Laszlo, he then talks about super coherence. So lots of coherent little human beings in their hearts, in harmony with each other, we then get super coherent. And in order to be that way, once we move into that, come into the heart, we start to see people, a new type, operating differently, but a new type of human. And I think Barbara called it Homo Universalis for a long time, and then I think she moved to Homo.
I don't know.
I don't know. Sherry will tell us that at the end, but there's definitely a new human emerging along with this. Brett, do you want to talk about these? And I think we better cut down this section, because I'm realizing we're taking a while on this background stuff.
Yeah. So everyone could just take 10 seconds to read this. One of the things that we like to present is what a lot of us are all doing, just to name it, is something called social architecture, which is the conscious design of an environment that encourages a desired range of behaviors. So we're not out to create this open space that just might create anything or something. We have very specific intentions and visions and values we want to see unfold. So then therefore you're using social architecture to try to create this. So it's related to game mechanics and all those kinds of things. And then the idea of socio-technology, which I love. I often say we're not technologists, we're socio-technologists. And basically that's just the convergence of technological and social insights into the construction of the artifacts that we actually use. So I love this word socio-technology, and I just like to pass it on and to be clear with people that it's the meeting of social and technical that is going to be the more powerful thing than either one alone.
All right, that's the background stuff. Took a little longer than I thought, but what are we actually doing? It sounds such like an easy question. It's really not for us. We tried to make it simple. You'll see. So our core work, and this is as distilled as we can get, has been to design a unified vision for a planetary operating system for co-creation, which we give the title of Together Life System. That vision is, we'll come on to this, is actually that it's a blueprint and a vision. Whereas many people, I'm sure on this call for many years, have been diving into different parts of what we will talk about, we were really in the inquiry of imagine we have new currencies, imagine we have new technologies, imagine we have new ways of dealing with our social processes, imagine all these different things. How did they then come together into a whole system? So we're actually, I mean, a systems thing, because a system is designed to achieve something. So what, when all those pieces come together, are they achieving, and how do they achieve it together? So we have a blueprint after 8 years of research in that area of what we think the pieces are. and then we also, from there, which is why this forum is so perfect for us, we're interested in how we then allow different agents to co-create through Synergy, that platform. So we call that, at the moment, this is something we're in an inquiry around, but for now we're calling it the Synergistic Fractal Organization, the SFO. So like Bret said, people will have heard of DAOs, the Distributed Autonomous Organization. There's also, I've heard recently, I think it's a Human Holonic Organization. I can't remember, Seeds are using something like that. We're particularly interested in the Synergistic Fractal Organization and how the Synergistic Fractal Organization works to create this system. And we've put this thing at the bottom, the chicken and the egg and the chicken, and bootstrapping the thing to build the thing to build the thing. Like, sounds like gibberish, but that's been our intention all along. We want to use our own co-creative processes and systems to create a system for co-creation. So they inform each other. It gets a bit trippy, but I'll leave that there. It can be confusing. The useful backstory now. Bret is more passionate about this bit than me. I did not put this bit slide in. This is about me.
Going forward, we're gonna use a metaphor based on Andrea's past professional experience in the tourism and technology industry and what she was part of, called a destination management organization and a destination management system. So I'm quite fascinated by the many people here, especially in this group, who are taking the work and the skills they did, let's say, in the old world or the old paradigm, or what they used to do, and how they apply them, like how synchronistically people have done what they have done in their life in order to bring those things and transpose them, let's say, into a new paradigm. So Andrea has this background, which we can share these slides later. You can read a little bit about her background, but she's got like this super expertise in this really niche industry that she was in, that you'll see clearly the mirrors and what we're about to share, and why she's kind of particularly able to do to envision what she's been envisioning and pulling together with our group.
So yeah, it's particularly, well, it's useful for all of it. I'll just take you on a little journey into tourism. I don't know if anyone's worked in tourism, but it's a little something new for us all possibly here. So yeah, Bret's just talked about the analog. I don't need that bit. I don't need it yet. So when obviously, well, where can I start with this? When we're all probably familiar with the world of products and building and making products and selling them. Like most products are very controllable, and they're designed in a, I mean, Mark has a lot of experience, Mark Wagner, in working with designing cars, which is my favorite example. Like, you know, when we make a car and we're like Ford Motor Company, we are in control of, you know, what the wheels will be like and what the engine will be like and so forth. In tourism, they don't have any such control, because the destination, which is what we sell in tourism, is made up of so many different players. It's made up of attractions and hotels and walks and the landscape. Like if you're trying to manage a destination, you have to get lots of different agents working. So in British tourism, we used to have a concept of a tourist board, but then they evolved into something called the Destination Management Organisation. And the role of the Destination Management Organisation was to get all those agents working together to deliver a seamless visitor experience, which probably when you guys go on holiday, you know, you've never thought about this, like, is somebody managing my experience? And what happened with technology is tourist boards and DMOs could only do so much, but when technology came into the picture, they could suddenly do what they could never do before, i.e. get all the live availability for all the hotels in the region, so you could go book a hotel online. And also, as well as allowing you to do that, say, well, now you book the hotel, check out the restaurant next door and book a meal. Like, technology changed tourism. So we created here, it's a very pretty picture, what was called the Destination Management System for the Destination Management Organisation. And I'm hoping that what the DMS used to do was manage all the activities of the DMO in a way that they couldn't, there's just people. So the reason we use this analog is because the Together Life system and the Together Life synergistic fractal organisation are quite similar mirrors. And hopefully it reassures you all that I've seen this happen before, and I know that what we're talking about is completely achievable. So from Destination Management Organisation to synergistic fractal organisation, I want to talk about the comparisons. So the vision of the synergistic fractal organisation, as I said at the beginning, is a vision of multiple different agents working together. So, for example, with a DAO, that's a distributed singular organisation. A synergistic fractal organisation might have 100 different companies, it might have bunches of individuals, it might have communities of practice, it might have all different types of stakeholders working together to deliver one thing. That's the vision of the synergistic fractal organisation. And if you think, I'm sure there's many people on this call, I overheard a bit a week before talking about how do we all work together elegantly. So what we've been looking at is, well, it's really nice to just bring everybody together. That's a great starting point. But imagine if we were a company, right? A company has ways of coordinating how we work together. That's its company structure. And especially the big companies, again, Mark Wagner, and I'm sure you know this, like a big company, the reason it organizes us into different departments is so we can coordinate who's doing what at scale in an effective way. So what we've been looking at is how can we create a structure, like a company structure, that organizes hundreds of different organizations working together in an intelligent, coordinated way. So on this slide, a lot of you will be familiar with Barbara Marx Hubbard's Wheel of Co-Creation. We've been working with the wheel, which was divided into 12 sectors, but also adding new dimensions to the wheel, such as functions and levels, and there's even other parts. So we can start to say, oh, you know, I'm trying to think of a good example here, but I'll just use for the sake of, because I've been talking about Mark Wagner from the car company. What are you doing? Oh, you're in the transport sector, but Mark, you work in building cars. I know you don't really, Mark, so we'll put you in production. And then also, what are you? Oh, you're an individual, actually, you're not an organization. So we can start to group people together into the relevant department. And from there, we can start coordinating how all these groups are working together. So that's just a really big picture overview, but a lot of our work, and I'm not kidding, I keep saying, how did I get to this diagram? And it looks so simple. We have been working in communities all over the world that's been thinking about this for years. It's like, we used to call it the Seed Fractal Architecture team. It's a complex piece. So this is an example of the 7 functions from our architecture, and saying, okay, let's say we're going to build the Together Life system together. Who's doing what function? So we have the coherence function at the heart. This is no management in this system. It's not a hierarchical system. The coherence people are trying to get all the different groups working together in harmony, and like a macrocosm of us as an individual, yeah, at the heart. But then there'll be the people in production. So maybe the people building the technology, the coders, or people who are facilitating and healing. Like the function map allows us to say, where would we plot people based on what they're doing? Is one aspect of the matrix. And I'm rushing through this as a lot, but I'm hoping you're all getting the essence of what the synergistic fractal organization architecture is about. Along with the architecture, we then have lots of other pieces. So, okay, we know how we can help coordinate all these groups. What about how they're sharing value and assets? And then when the value comes back from what they create, how do they share that value? That's holosourcing, which Denise mentioned. We'll come on to that. And we've done a lot of investigation around when people synergize. So this is the topic of this group. They have different assets, right? We come to the table, maybe David, if I don't know if he's still on the call from Our World, might come with his Our World invention. Maybe we as S7 would have come in with our new map technology invention. What happens when they get stitched together? Is it just a new one thing? How do we steward the thing that's stitched together? Are we in control? I don't like that word particularly, but do we make the decisions? Does David? How does it happen together? We've done a lot of work around how we synergistically steward and independently steward so people don't lose their sovereignty. So in holosourcing, we have something called, there's a lot of new language, synovating for the AWAKEN Synergy Dream Team. Synovating is when we innovate through synergy. We've also done a lot of work around how we set up aligned agreements. Massive piece we're going to come on to is how we allow those different organizations to work together through the principles of coherence and life success, and not through material success alone. So this is another big piece of our work. I'll come on to it. I could do a whole presentation on it, but how the SFO is working to principles of syntropy and life enhancing values of success, not through just material success alone, and therefore how they share value in a way that's a success for all life. So they're starting to embody principles of sharing fairly and helping each other instead of competing and trying to like outdo the other co-creator. Flow and sense making is how we govern together, and how we do it through recognizing everybody's contribution counts and how we make sense of that. We call it synergy resonance navigation. Flow, how we flow in natural rhythms. Let's get out of this reality where we're all working too hard and we can't even be coherent and healthy. We're not in natural rhythm with life. So there's a lot, but we've done a lot of design around how the synergistic fractal organization can organize with completely new principles. And we're going to create a constitution which we will put out as an offering, and then the people who are interested, and we're already starting to talk to Mark Kane, another Mark, and Josh already about how we can start bringing our thinking together around the constitution. And I know there'll be others here who would want to co-create the constitution. We're not here to dominate. We're just saying, here's our offer, what we get excited about, who wants to co-create this piece. Deep breath.
Don't have to rush so much.
Yeah, how am I doing for
I don't know,
time?
it's okay. Just
Yeah. So having got the synergistic fractal organization together, we're all working together. Our view, and I'm talking about our as in not just Bret and I'm talking about the groups we've been working with for many years, are of the view that until we create the system for co-creation, we can't actually create other innovations, because how do you co-create a new energy powered car with lots of people all over the planet if they don't have tools to use? So we always called it mission zero, create the platform for co-creation, then other groups can come and co-create their innovations. So we see that the first SFO, its first mission is to create the Together Life System, or a planetary system for co-creation. The Together Life System is all up for co-creation also as a naming. It's just our naming for now. So this map that you're seeing, I mean, it's just one diagram, but that is 8 years work on looking at what all these pieces are of a planetary co-creation system. So I can't go into them today. If anybody wants to, we've got in-depth guides to each piece. It's also, to be clear, as Bret started, it's a blueprint. We never saw ourselves creating the platform in its entirety. We always thought, oh, right, so we've identified that, you know, a platform for co-creation needs to include what we've called on here, for example, the vital signs monitor. Now, who is out there developing vital sign monitor technologies or thinking, let's synergize them and let's create that piece, and then the SFO will help them create their piece in relation to the other parts. So this is a big picture vision. There's 12 areas on here, which is a distillation. They're all important. So I'll just mention 2 examples. I'm going to pick them at random. So the essential system. So what that is a vision of co-creators receiving what they need to self-actualize based on what is essential to their life purpose and health, also based on coherence, and from receiving essentials, being nourished and creating from a place of love and wholeness. And then the innovations they create can be given from that place and also produced for a lot less cost and energy. So the essential system is like a new type of salary system, but comes from a place of wholeness, not just paying people for, you gave me what you want, now here's some money. It's more a case of, let's get you what you need to realize who you truly are. And it links to other pieces of the system. So let me pick another one. The life point system I've already mentioned. So on here it's described as coherent system and currents, but the life point system is moving out of a current way of thinking about circulating resources. We live in a world where resources get traded based on one-on-one relationships, and it's completely corruptible. Like what we consider to be valuable, what we consider to be important in terms of how we share. The life point system provides indicators for saying, hey, this person over here needs this and you need this, and if they get this, you're going to come into more harmony. Why not share on this basis? So they're life-based indicators that give us a new model for how we might share and circulate resources. So again, I could give a whole presentation, but like I said, this is a high-level picture. It's meant to be explored at a much deeper level. So this is just a quote from David Bohm, who I'm sure everybody here knows. We're big fans of him, but he put forth that as we go forward into a new paradigm, we must design from wholeness into the parts. Humanity is very linear about the way it does things and doesn't work from wholeness, works from parts and tries to get to the whole. And that's why the TLS starts with a vision of how can the whole thing work? Now let's work to the parts. So we designed with that principle. TLS objectives. So we started by saying we hold a worldview, a co-creative worldview. We've got a whole paper on this. It's called the Orange Paper of why the current system will never service life. And we identified 12 competing interests that the current system has with life. So take the first one, unbridled growth. Like, how can we live in a natural system with social operating system that says we're winning when we're just growing and growing and producing more and more, when we're extracting constantly. And in order for businesses to succeed, they have to grow, and yet that's completely in conflict with what nature needs. So we identified, that's one example, we identified 12 conflicting points of interest of the current system, and then how we'd have to switch them to 12 wins in a new system for life to succeed. So the Together Life system, we said at the beginning, systems need to achieve things. Everything it does is to achieve those 12 wins for life. So for example, we moved to balanced growth, and that relates to donut economics. So we're producing at a rate that's balanced with what we can extract. And that's not just at the planetary environmental level, it's at the human level. Like, why are we all overworking? It's not coherent. Our bodies run on energy. Deep breath. So the other two core pillars of the Together Life system, actually the foundation of the Together Life system is coherence, which, like I've said, we take to be another word for harmony. And we're of the view that if people are not in a state of coherence, which I think everyone in here, especially Lumi, understand to be related to the heart and checking in with our hearts and being in the heart, we don't think co-creation is possible. People are too blocked to think about, well, how do I care for myself and the rest of life? We go into ego, we want to protect ourselves, we're in scarcity. So the whole Together Life system operates from ensuring people and helping people to get into coherence and into their heart, and understanding that without being in the heart, how co-create, we're never going to care for life. We're too busy trying to solve, address wounds and that kind of thing. So the Together Life system, all the point system and everything are trying to say, are you coherent? How can we help you be coherent? How can we help you be whole and healthy and love yourself? And how can we help you therefore love yourself and love others and care for the plants around you and other people that you share your life with? How can we help you care? And then from that care, how can you then move into into harmony with the rest of life? And then there's loads of deep scientific thinking around entropy and syntropy, and that's what ergonomics is, but I won't get into that. It's just important to say it starts with love and care. And this is just a little diagram of like saying, imagine we were a company and we were putting out a big technology system. Technology systems don't get delivered just by technology. I don't know who has worked deeply in technology. Really successful technology is delivered by loads of the people who bring the technology to life, the animators. So, whether it's a person sat on the help desk saying, I'm sorry, our software didn't work for you today, or whether you've gone to an event and someone said, try on this super duper health technology. Technology is brought to life by people. So the SFO, the Synergistic Fractal Organization, coordinates how we build the TLS, but also who those people are who can bring it to life. And that's why the healers and the facilitators are so important in this picture, and the communicators. I'm nearly through. Booting up. So it's massive, right? What we've just shared with you is massive. We think it's going to be like 10 years to build the whole system and get it fully at scale and operating. Our vision is to start with what we call co-creator initiator. It's a working title, and it's like a reduced down version of all the apps, but crunched down into the first ones that are needed for anybody to start co-creating. So this is an overview of the mini apps within the app. I've talked about some of them, but it would be just like a get started. Come and play, come and learn how to co-create. Like, why not set up your own little mother fund crowdfund and find some people who will nourish you for being you? I'm sure we have lived this journey, but I'm sure there's others here. I know there's a few here, I can think of a few, where we've been learn to ask to be supported, to find out who we truly are, so we can give our gifts to life. Like, the Mother Fund is a little mini crowdfund that would invite you to do that, invite for support. It would have a first version of the synergy engine, starting to synergize you with people who you could maybe co-create with or play with. It's got early life points, like starting to show, well, you think you're successful, but how balanced are you? How are you winning at relationships? Like, are you good at communicating? Do you get your message out? Like, it's starting to give you an integral definition of success. And it's got lots of other things. Oh, the other major piece is the avatar. and vision quest builder. So you're building an avatar and you're saying, this is my vision quest. These are my skills. These are my intentions. These are my passions. And that's the basis on which we synergize you with other people. But if you've got blocks, we've tried this, yeah. People come and say, I don't know who I want to be. And my mother said I should be a doctor, and I'm not sure about dropping out of the world and trying something new. So it also refers people to people who specialize in helping people identify who they are and what they want to be. But I know I'm mentioning this because I think it relates a lot to David's work in our world, with the avatar, and also the life points relate to David's karma points. And technology wise, we haven't even spoken about this. We again have been in investigation for years and years. Most of the people who know us from the early days, we started out with NewMap, which was a holonic fractal synergistic technology. And we've been playing with holons for years, trying to understand how we get people out of linear thinking. People can't even understand how life is interconnected when they're using linear interfaces and linear technologies where you can't see connections between things. So we've played with this. A lot of our social thinking is informed by the technology, and now we still have a vision to build our tech using these kinds of interfaces and what we would still call like this global graph technology. So the idea is we can view data in multidimensional ways. So like I talk about Iron Man often, but let's look at all the different co-creators now, show me them by geography or show me them on a world map. And I'm doing an impression of Iron Man. I don't know who can see me when he like moves the screen around, but you shift the lens and you can see the data. We still have a vision of that. And we're working with we want to work with different co-creators to bring that to life. We talked about experience. Yeah, we design everything through experience. There's nothing here that we don't try ourselves. It doesn't matter at what level. We had the Synergy Hub Rotterdam experiment, some of you heard of. We were there for a year. We had a whole floor of an old care home. Anybody could come in, and we prototype what it's like when people just follow their passion and self-organize, and particularly how they synergize. A lot of our discovery about how people synergize was discovered at Synergy Hub, which was the perfect title for what we figured out there. Just talked about the NewMap embryo prototype. We've worked a lot with philanthropists and moving to a new psychology of generative based resourcing. So most of our current cycle is extractive. I only get resources if I'm going to give back to somebody, like the investor who's like, I'll only give you something if you give me something. We don't get given to be just fully ourselves, so we can create and then gift forward. It's extractive cycle. So if we want to be truly regenerative, we follow nature and we give first and we nourish first. So that's why we've worked with philanthropists for years. And we've received a lot of resources that way. Lots of pictures of us in community testing this stuff out. All right, I'm just going to come out of here. What time is it? Oh, I've done good for time. So this is the final bit. I've just put a bit of a spotlight. Let me just go back in here. So I've raced through a lot in terms of the Together Life system. So this is a bit of a spotlight on just two components. The second one is holosourcing, because Denise mentioned it. We mentioned we would speak a bit about it. People have been talking to us quite a bit about holosourcing. The first bit here is about what we call the ergonomic applications of the Together Life system. So what the ergonomic applications are anything that represent a vision of moving out of pure economic thinking into a new type of model of using resources based on what serves life, i.e. organic. That's where the word org comes from. So these are models of using resources that are life-serving. So the Together Life system has several applications that work together to start to make that shift. So the Mother Fund is a new type of investment fund.
Not really. We've changed it to a platform.
Well, we changed it to a platform.
It's not a monolithic fund like an old-fashioned fund. It's really a platform for integral wealth flow. So it's a decentralized, distributed synergistic platform for flowing the resources that will be necessary to all of those organizations and people in the SFO. So it's not just, yeah, an old-fashioned bottleneck, just fund somewhere that someone has an account to. It'll use technology. You know, every project will have its own little baby mother fund, you know, and there's like a meta mother fund and all that. And it flows all the resources to where they need to go, like Chinese medicine. And it's this part of the system that nourishes people and nourishes innovations, so they have the right context and the right soil to bring their gifts. Yeah.
And in particular, I don't know if it's been clear all the way through. If we think about a current economic system, it's only interested in outputs, right? It's like, what are you creating? What will it do? I'll fund that. We're not used to thinking of funding people to be whole and healthy. And that's why the planet's breaking down. People don't seem to be able to make this leap. We don't care for life. We only care about what people are creating. We don't care about, well, that's nice that you're creating that, but how are you doing? How are you feeling about what you're doing? So ergonomics brings in female, feminine principles to creation, saying it's not just about your output. It's about how we're caring for creators and how creators are balanced. And if they can be taken care of, they will take care of the planet. But if you're going to completely exploit them, they're not going to give a damn about the rest of the planet because they're too busy surviving. So it's moving out of scarcity by loving and caring for people in our production process. And the life point system is related to that, like I've shared about that. So yeah, I've talked about that. And then holosourcing I've also touched upon. Holosourcing is really about, I've mentioned this, so when we come into different organizations synergizing, they will have, like I said, different innovations and IP. Now in the old world, they'd probably compete with that IP, or one would say, I own it. Now what's starting to happen is we're saying, no, you're going to start sharing your IP. But then in a traditional setting, it'd be like, well, what, you know, when we make some money, who gets what if we're sharing? Like, these are the kind of questions that started to come up. But in co-creation, it's like, well, you know, like when they merge together, how can we share that value, but also how can we flow value to the rest of the network? So it starts to bring in a concept of flowing to each other, but flowing to the rest of the network to bring it into harmony, which is where the concept of a new commons comes in. So I think Josh has been thinking about this, and there's some others in our circles thinking about, like Jeff Clearwater, who Sherry knows, thinking about new types of commons. But we're seeing a new commons where when we start to synergize things, we understand how our collective assets are used for the good of all, as well as those co-creators. Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to add, I looked up the definition of open source model, because there's a difference between open source model and like open source licenses that we're familiar with like software and all that. And in the definition of open source model, it said it was a response to proprietary, you know, conditions. And when I looked at that, I thought, well, holosourcing is a response to both proprietary conditions and open source conditions, because based on our research and other sort of pioneers like Jordan Hall, we have a clip of him, and even Michelle Bowens, open source is not the answer for us. If you're talking spiral dynamics, it's very orange and green and tier one thinking, and it's very actually abusive, and competitors actually end up winning. And it seems like a good thing from our perspective. Like, we know why people want to do open source, because it's a response to proprietary, but we think we need to transcend and include this idea of open and closed. So Holosource model is about our response to both of those poles of proprietary and open. And it doesn't include licenses. We may create a Holosource license someday, but really the idea is there'll be licenses and agreements that are appropriate to every interaction that happens. And you can't have a one-size-fits-all license, because that's part of the problem. There's no discretion when you use an open source license. So, you know, Monsanto or the government or whatever can just use it the way they want, because there's no discretion when you slap a license on something in the traditional open source way. So holosourcing is really a framework for helping all those organizations come into clear agreement, come into clear understanding of what they're sharing, how they're sharing it, the stewardship rights that are maintained, that are new. It's a whole process around that. So we'll bring in the best of lawful things and clear agreements and those kind of things.
Yeah, and it's also to do with how we create a new type when I've been talking about sharing resources differently, if we don't have agreements around how we do that, then it won't happen. And also therefore protecting, I mean, we're all, I think most of us are familiar with the idea of moving from game A to game B, non-rivalrous to anti-rivalrous. If we really want to move to anti-rivalrous, we can, in the anti-rivalrous realm, we can share, we can play together well, and we can show how we're sharing in a way that serves us. But if we open that and then say, you rivalrous game can just exploit us, we're not embodying the principles of anti-rivalry, we're allowing people to abuse our energy system. So it's actually contrary. So it's great inside the membrane, but outside of it, we need to model, at least from our view, we need to model taking care of our energy and serving each other. And then the SynAvation model is also involved in holosourcing. We're on our last slide, by the way, so thank you for bearing with us. But the SynAvation model is, so another thing that happens in co-creation is we used to call it the blob, is people start sharing their ideas and suddenly everybody has a say on the thing they're creating together. And if it's a big group, people will argue in a circular fashion for hours and hours and hours about how to make a decision about the shared thing. So what holosourcing does is it says, who is stewarding this particular piece? If you were the steward and you created it, we trust you. This is your moment in the orchestra, right? This is your song. We want to honor your song and we give you stewardship of that piece. But when it comes into synergy with the other piece, the bit that overlays you steward together. So we have this balance of autonomy, or what is often called sovereignty, with synergy. And that has been a huge piece of research. There's been a lot of drama around that one, but there's a lot of work we've done on that particular aspect. So, I don't know if we've got time. There's one more slide on Togetherland. I think we've gone over, but it's up to you guys. Bret didn't get to talk about Togetherland. I forgot about that one, but we can.
No, I'll just leave it for now. I don't know how to yet talk about it, but so much. I'll send you the slide, but it's basically transcending and including the system into a way to tell the narrative and create an infinite reality experience on the planet that blurs all the lines and creates an immersive, basically, experience and uses resources in a conscious, wise way. So I call it regenerative film production and transmedium production instead of transmedia, because transmedia is basically internet technology, but really we're going across mediums. Governance is a medium, physics is a medium, education is a medium. All of these things are mediums. So when we go across mediums and synergize those, for me, that's where all the juice is at. And Togetherland is a take off the movie Tomorrowland. So if any of you have seen the last 3 minutes of Tomorrowland, it's about all these people that haven't given up hope getting a token. And they're all different colors and races and ages, and they're all innovators. And they wake up in this field where they all come together to build the future. So, so it's a big story, so I'll just leave it at there. And I could share some slides someday with people that are interested. I know Ed Lance, I wanted to talk to you someday about what you've been doing with media and all that and share some ideas. Yeah.
Cool stuff.
Yeah, thank you everyone for listening and for the speed there. And we know it's hard to understand, and we know it's hard for us still to really give the best sharing of our work, but so thank you for your patience.
Amazing. I love all your visioning and what you're doing to make this happen. I really appreciate hearing the whole experience. I think there's a lot of synergy that can happen. I think a lot of us have been dreaming very similarly. So how do we come together and work this out? So I think there's some questions. So specifically, there's a question that Ray was asking is, what is a whole-on? And we understand that a whole is, a part and a whole at the same time. Is it related to Indra's net, or can you tell us a little bit more about the concept of whole-on? And then we can go around and have more questions.
Technically speaking, yeah. Technically speaking, a whole-on is anything that is simultaneously a whole and a part. So that's technically what a whole-on is. And basically the story is, I believe Arthur Koestler really coined the term in the 50s or 60s. He was a systems theorist, and he was kind of like looking around at life thinking, wait a second, everything is sort of like independent and also part of something else. Like to be true to my perception, I need a word that means like yeah, Bret's an individual person, but he's also part of a relationship and then a community and or quarks and whatever. And he's like, he made up a word called holon. Now, the holonic theory or the idea of holons can be applied in many different ways. Ken Wilber used them in integral theory. Like scientists can use them in different ways. We haven't necessarily applied it in a very isomorphic, like this is how it is, this is what holons are. I think we took it upon us to say we use holonic thinking, holonic perception, holonic ideology, and understanding synergy, because synergy is holons and everything is interconnected. So Indra's net, yeah, every one of those beads would technically be a holon. They're whole in themselves, but they're also part of the local constellation and part of that whole Indra's net. So I would say, yeah, we've used it loosely as a meme, as a tool, rather than directly saying, this is what it is and this is how it works, and applying it like a physicist might or someone else.
Great, and a lot of people are adding to that in the chat. Yes, keep on conversing about this concept. It's definitely a beautiful concept that when we embrace and integrate in ourselves, imagining that, it brings up so much of how we relate with the world and how we can be in more resonance with ourselves and thus and how we react and act within our nature and with the nature of others. So
one more,
have some questions. Oh yeah.
One more thing. My favorite meme that we came up with that kind of encapsulated the whole thing was the world was flat, then it was round, then it's holonic. Like actually the most up-to-date understanding of the planet would really probably be that it's holonic compared to even being round. So, and that's obviously just a meta poetry, but I always like that one.
I have a quick question for you. I noticed one of your slides in passing had something identified at the bottom of the slide as a nuomap. Does that have anything to do with nuosinosis?
I don't even know what nuosinosis is. Thank God we've got a new thing. Tell us
what the nuomap was.
Nuomap was our prototype software, an early idea, what we thought was going to be a platform for co-creation. Our original, Andrea and I used to be a three-way partnership with a guy named Chris who brought his PhD level. He was a zeros and ones developer. So he had something called Nuomap, which was a barely alpha prototype when we all first met. And then we started developing it a little bit. I'll show you, Randy, I can send you some videos and like the old version of it and all that. So that was a software based on a holonic database,
okay,
a fractal interface, and then various functions like messaging and this and that. So it was kind of a sandbox to help us understand what we'd want to create in the future.
That was the nuomap. It reminded me of nuosinosis. Nuosinosis is new thought, new ideas, new ways of relating that implies mutual togetherness, mutual co-creation of new systems of thought, philosophy. It's a Russian philosophy, the nuosinosis. Yeah. And in fact, if you're interested, I own the .com, the .net, and the .org of that domain. If you want to do something with it, it's just parked at the moment.
Right on. Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, no one's not really used that word. So, but it certainly encapsulates our headspace, you know, the thoughtware.
Beautiful. And I want to apologize, but I'm going to have to take off here in about 6 minutes.
Right on.
I got an offsite appointment, but thank you so much. It was a wonderful presentation, and I look forward to meeting you when I finally get home.
Yeah, nice to connect.
He's in Glastonbury. He's in Florida now, but he lives in Glastonbury.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I have a couple of questions. First of all, I wanted to say, since Andrea brought up that I was in the car kind of world, the automotive industry, the application of the wheel of co-creation and synergy, even in a corporate environment, reduced their process or their product development by 62% and included a whole bunch of innovations along the way. So this was work I did back in the early 90s. But I would love to continue that exploration. For example, you added a couple of layers to the wheel of co-creation, which follows the hierarchy, heterarchy, synarchy model of turning that wheel of co-creation into a spiraling torus of tensegrity, right? Where they all evolve together, right? In slight tension with each other. And so I would love you to add an 8th S of synarchy. Maybe that's the new foundation, because it is something that is co-created also, and it is part of our evolution. And what would the other thing was part of the synergy engine. In the new map days, you had some profiles, profile attributes that were being looked at that kind of helped us create the synergistic connections, right? Has any more work been done on those profile attributes? And if, from a programming standpoint, or if anyone wanted to really help with that, those are key for how to draw synergies.
Well, the funny thing is, Mark, first of all, I can't wait to talk to you more, because I know we share the same interest in applying this stuff, and I know you have similar experience to me, so I can't wait to talk more. But, and also, just when you mentioned the toroidal thing, I'll speak now to guidance Habathu about it, is if we, that vertical function system is mirroring the human at a bigger fractal level. So that's why as we get harmonic and we organize like that, it's with little toroidal fields, and then the macro is a major toroidal field. Like, so yeah, it totally comes through that way. But what's interesting with the attributes for the synergy engine in the early days, yeah, we did a lot of playing of like, let's map an individual, let's map a group. What kind of things do we need to capture to synergize them? So do they have a shared intention? Do they have shared resources? Do they have shared passions? We started there, but now what we've got with the matrix of the wheel is like, okay, based on what they've mapped as individuals and groups, we now know where to synergize them to. So for example, somebody who is interested maybe or has huge skills in coding and typing, they're probably going to link more to production if that's their passion than say somebody who's put networking, communicating, they'd probably map to the networking level. So, or the networking function. So we needed the wheel structure for the synergy engine to actually organize people. So that's the new layer that we've worked on much more recently. But yes, we have bunches of thinking, and in particular, like how we've started to build that individual or group level profile so that it's rich. We actually thinking that your points will go up the more data you map. So the more you know about yourself, or the more you can express about your organization, that will up probably something like your synergy points. Not to compete, it's just telling you you'll be able to synergize more effectively. So knowing more who you are and what you're doing will allow for more effective synergy. So
and I think
thinking about that.
I think we've gotten to the point, and just to reaffirm, the synergy engine is such a big deal. It's like that alone is like going to the moon, like when NASA had to build a rocket. And we just want to always keep reaffirming, like, we're not building that. We know it's necessary. Like, we know some of the key, elements to it, but it's only through the combination of like our world and biofield and core network and threefold and holochain could we actually have something like a real synergy engine or a resource-based gift economy. All those things are going to be built like the moonshot, like that. Like the TLS is our version of the rocket that takes us to that new destination, and it's just everyone has to come together to do it. And they have the answers, like with information architects, data architects, algorithm specialists. Like, we've got a lot to share from our praxis. And like our intuition, I think all of us, like our intuition's been honed to sort of know, guide, like help all of us guide collectively intelligence to like what is necessary. But like the building of that thing, yeah, we need everybody. Like, well, I mean, not that you don't all know that. I just want to reaffirm our position. We're not doing that. No, we can't.
I agree. I wanted to just point out that several people on the call are also working with sensor technologies that help extend our perceptions to see these connections that we innately have. right? These are human characteristics that need habilitating or rehabilitating, being uncovered to perceive this. We don't need it as it's just a learning tool that help guide people who still don't perceive these subtle connections in subtle relationships. But these sensors are getting sensitive enough to perceive, emotions as well as things like the gene keys and so on, where we can start perceiving these relationships and utilize them to work more in harmony. So this is so cool, and I can't wait to have further dialogue. We've been waiting a long time, Andrea. Let's get together.
I'm really sorry to all the people I love here. I'm going to try and change that. I've been telling Sherry, I'm working on, so I'm getting there. I'm trying to be more outward. I'm a bit of a hermit.
What are your guys' next steps? What do you see as the next steps to bringing this online? What are the, the closest things that you could start moving?
Well, we have a plan actually that that's actually what I wanted to start talking to the people I'm close to here already, and more of you if you need. And it was my first thing I wanted to talk to Sherry is and we're talking to Mark Kane at the minute about it, is what's crucial for us is establishing a constitution for co-creation. All organizations have constitutions. We're talking about a synergistic fractal organization. So it needs the constitution, so we all go, yeah, that's the principles we're all operating by. This is what we mean by the word coherence. This is what we mean by synergy. This is what we agree to do when we're in this ecosystem. So I think that that's crucial, that we develop the constitution for the synergistic fractal organization. I think there are people here, like I said, who can co-create that with us. I've got the bare bones of a lot of it, but I think that there's co-creators, and there's many of them here. And then once we have that constitution, we need to begin to start in a bootstrapping way, locating people to those different parts of the wheel. And then once we get them into groups, we need to start getting them to work in pure synergy on their pieces. So I know there's a lot of dialogue here. For example, David, if you're in Zoom with us, and for example, Sherry just said we need more of an evolutionary profile. I know Sherry knows a lot about the gene keys that you just talked about, Matt. Who are the people that understand how we're going to actually specifically build the avatar? And they're in a group, and we know meanwhile we've located the other people to a group who are saying, okay, I've been working on holochain, or I'm working on new interfaces. How are you guys going to combine your stuff to build this profile? And then they're linked also. So we need to start getting into production, but I think the constitution is crucial. And then I think together we can start to build. We put forward the co-creation initiator. We want to do a whole advice process with everybody. We're like, what does everybody think is the first piece of the platform we need to create together? So, and we're talking quite a bit to Mark. I think Mark's still on the call, Mark Kane, about what Open World Alliance can do to also facilitate that, because they share so much resonance with the vision, and they hold some key pieces too. So, and the Constitution obviously is important because it's the thing that we all co-create and rally around. So it's no longer like Bret and Andrea, or Together and Mona or Juan are incubating it. It's out of the body, and that's what allows for I don't care about democracies. I'm personally not interested in democracy, but I'll use the word. The democratization of the SFO is based on having that code. The Constitution is like a smart contract. It's oh, that's what we've all agreed to. We didn't agree to believe in Bret or to agree with Josh Passmore or Andrea's system. It's that Constitution is what we're beholden to, so to say. That's the thing that explains, and then it's obviously it's able to evolve, because baked into the Constitution is that it must evolve, and here's how it can evolve. So that's the most important thing, technically speaking. Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, I got a question. So in my experience, because Bret was a part of co-creating a constitution type of thing, it's an agreement field that basically can be a starting point for people to kind of coherently come together. I've noticed in our organizational structuring, traditionally people add under the umbrella. And I've noticed us adding umbrellas on top of what we've already created. So we're actually sort of moving in a different way. It's like we kind of come together and we create a new organization that encompasses the different pieces. So it's kind of like we're coming together instead of splitting apart. And I see the Constitution like that too, or any kind of document like that too, where it's constantly evolving. So, it's a living blueprint. So just putting that out there, that the question is, what's it for? And then soon, because there's a conglomeration of things we're talking about here, and then that changes and shifts, and then someone else has a new piece in it. And so it's just understanding, I guess, what's that for? Because then along comes another group that the name changes or something else changes, or you know what I mean? So dynamic, very dynamic discussion.
Well, we've investigated that a lot, Josh, because if you think we talk a lot about creative agency, right? So again, with the green meme, what I would call green meme, especially when it's toxic, there's a tendency to anyone can join this, and then the thing shifts. So the people who had an original intention say, this is always my favorite example, I'm sorry, to create a car. It was so funny when I met Matt Wagner and he actually used to build cars, because I've always used the car example. But anyway, say I come in and I say I want to build a car, and the new people keep joining, like, I don't want to build a car anymore, I want to build a rocket. I'm like, well, I came here to build a car, I'm even on this team. So the way that our system works is it only bonds people together around a resonance field, and then the expansion, the synergy, which is the whole that's greater than the parts, is emerging, but without losing the integrity of the original vision that bonded those people. So our system is top down, bottom up in that way. And then the Constitution itself, I mean, I know I've got a call with you, Josh, on Monday, so we can get deeper, and I look forward to it. But when I'm talking about the Constitution for co-creation, it's not really at that level of the different agents coming together. It's more, what are the meta principles of game B, the co-creative game? So what are the principles? And I think Bret said you have a term for that. It was like, I think you have a version of this, Josh. I need to talk to you, but it's more like, these are the principles that everybody who's playing at co-creation are creating too. And then from there, we're creating things together. And that's where we see more of that emergence and expansion. But the reason I think that those game rules are important is because if we don't have them, we have no consistent rules through which to synergize and interconnect. So, but however, even though they're like more of a playing field and a foundation, I do see that what co-creators will do is use the tools and then say, well, we use this tool set in this way, and we think that this part of the Constitution needs expanding. And then through feedback loops, the Constitution continues to expand. But it's meant to be very meta level, this Constitution, not micro level.
Yeah. So yeah, what I could see in the future, just listening to what you're saying, is maybe a place where people can plug in, look at their own principles, look where they want to play, come out, because agreements are based on principles. Like, principles are vague agreements that really don't make, they don't define anything. So then you have, your agreement field built that fits you or is catered to you, or catered to that time and moment. Maybe it's catered to that event you want to go to. But the problem right now in that we're challenged with is the funding pools, because funding pools need to have a coherent, and living organisms also, if we have an agreement not to, bring in Monsanto or the oil barons or something, and those things come in because everyone can just do whatever they want, then that's why you have agreement fields, right? So, knowing where one stops and where one begins and all that at the same time. Sherry?
I'll just respond briefly to Josh, Sherry, before I speak. I'll be brief. So Josh, I should have made clear, the Constitution is more meta-level organizational principles, but when people form what I call holospheres, which I didn't even get into in this talk, so holospheres are the individual quests that people are on, they totally define their own agreements within that meta context. So, Sherry, sorry.
No, that's great. I'm also just putting in a little document over here. Those of you who know me here know that I love alignment beyond agreement. It's a nice distinction between intention as a way to build culture and fields, and agreements, because sometimes agreements are what we think we know, and then, as David Bohm would say, hey, what's your assumptions around what you think you know? So it's like we're all learning how to be open to the mystery of the creative process and stay with what we do know and be open to transformation. I wanted to just talk about the piece around money that you were just speaking about, and it's very up in my field right now, and has been for a while. And for those Gene Keys aficionados, it's my life's purpose is around syntropic philanthropy is the phrase I like to use. But I have some folks in my field who are like big money people in philanthropy and conscious, and they are, how do we fund an ecosystem? So this is like an inquiry, which really then, interestingly enough, gets real around, well, how coherent are we as an ecosystem? What are the lines of the alignment field? So there's some, and literally they were talking about, well, he was telling me, you know, we gave $100 million to these 10 or 12 organizations, companies, and they have like a forgivable loan, and you know, it's very much an interesting design that Village Lab, this is where I met them, they picked up on these. Jeff Clearwater, this is 5 years ago, although I've been in recent conversation with them around the wealth stewardship model, which has some really good DNA in it as well. And he said it fell apart because one company was not, like, they didn't hold the coherence or the resonance. And he was kind of proposing, because I'm always coherence. And he said, well, can you do this? Can you do this? So I want to just plant that seed of what does that look like? And that's one of a conversation Andrea and I are poised for. And it's just up. And it feels like the level of this field is such that it could hold it. The minute you talk about money, power, sharing, you better start embodying who you think you are in a new way. So, you know, I'll just leave it there.
Well, thank you, Sherry. I forgot that Josh added that, like, you know, we've all, I mean, Sherry, since we met you and Bret particularly always shared a passion for the, I just saw, did you say it, Sherry, or did Lumi say it after in the thread, this idea of syntropic philanthropy? Sherry said that, did she? Yeah. So, yeah.
Actually, I'm just going to say really quick, in my first Gene Key book, which goes back to 2012, the big fat one, I was reading that for like maybe that passage in my Gene Key Life's Purpose, and I was reading from the gift frequency into the Siddhic frequency, which is the divine, living the life divine. And I had like, it was like a transmission. I had this aha, like, oh my God, this is syntropic philanthropy. And, you know, and I still didn't even get syntropic philanthropy until a couple years later. And then it was like, oh, I see syntropic philanthropy. So sometimes our minds are ahead of our capacity to embody. And that's always a good gap to notice.
Well, I would say, Sherry, it's such a beautiful naming, because Bret talks about spiritual philanthropy, and we have lots of different namings, planetary philanthropy. But the thing with the syntropic philanthropy is particularly with the Mother Fund and the Life Point system, is like, how is the value that comes in being used syntropically? Like for the optimum, support of the whole system, not just the parts. Like capitalism, it breaks us all up into parts, and we all take and extract from each other. Some people are giving more, some people are not getting enough. Whereas the Life Point system is saying, these are all different cells in a system. How are they working with the value that they flow? So I can talk to you about it. We could talk all day about it, but we can talk more deeply, Sherry. I think that what's been coming through as we've all gone forward is that the philanthropy has to work in that syntropic fashion with all the cells together, and it's an ecosystem, but it's a syntropic ecosystem. So we've got one more naming on that.
Yeah. Andrea and Sherry, that resonates tremendously with the recent conversations that we're having in regards to biofield quantum coherence. With the work that Mohan is doing with random number generators and the work that Halo, this hybrid supercomputer, are doing in regards to quantum coherence. To me, what you're describing, I hadn't heard about synanthropic philanthropy, but it's immediately brought Mohan into my mind, and I believe it's exactly what he is. I mean, he has been discussing also with Robin, that is here on this call, how to translate the coherence aspect into financial engine. But I would really, I don't know, Bret, if you have been following those conversations, because we spoke in the past about random number generation and biofield, but there's a lot of been discussed and moving forward in that regard with the, showing up of Danny Caputi and Leo Madrid from their Halo hybrid supercomputer. We are having conversations with that, and I believe it's in that direction. It's toward. I mean, it's rewarding when someone is acting from their most powerful inner alignment, which is the best way to support themselves and the whole. And that is I believe aligned with the life points that you're mentioning and the work that, again, Mohan is doing. So I don't know, Mohan, if you are in the call and would like to speak a little bit about that, because Mohan is introverted as well, and I tend to push him a little bit sometimes.
Hey, hi. So my idea basically came from exactly a resource sharing model where how can I build a platform where I can share the resources that I gained by virtue of building the platform to the people who gave those resources to me. Like, how can a company can be equally giving back to their consumers? So that's the idea how these random number generator thing came up, where when we wanted to design this model for biofield, we were, instead of like storing these data, what if we make them as random number generators and use encryption algorithms to provide securities, and whichever phone or node is generating this random numbers to the server based on their contribution, they can be rewarded back. So the users or the participants of the platform or game are rewarded back through contributing their what they have, kind of is how this idea started about. So
Maybe I provide a little bit of a context of random number generator. I've learned all of this from Mohan, which is, I don't know how many people are here familiar with the Global Consciousness Project and the network of random number generators distributed all over the world. These machines that produce zeros and ones, and they were able to see how consciousness is modifying the coherence of those little devices. I'm following Roger Nelson, who is the creator, the founder of the Global Consciousness Project, and yesterday he posted about the coherence during the talk between Trump and the other candidate, and they were seeing how it was completely incoherent. It was complete chaotic and random, and you could see that on the Global Consciousness Project. And Mohan is building an innovation on what if, instead of just having a couple of random number generators as the Global Consciousness Project had, what if we could create a much more profound network all over the world using the biofield as the source of that randomness, something along those lines, Mohan.
So, yeah, so better way to call it. So what they used random number generators in their lab is electron tunneling principles, and we all widely know that we are surrounded by different technologies, electronics, electronic gadgets, and in the upcoming world with IoTs, there's going to be a lot of noise that's going to be generated by these systems. And using that noise as a reflective source of how these chaotic systems are behaving, and how do we make an inference of how these guys were able to relate this global events with this, how can we, because with the connections it becomes easily possible, like we can connect all of the free IP open source cameras where there is a CMOS sensor which has an inherent noise capacity to it. So and then we apply a post processing to it and create a network of random number generators that are distributed and start observing what's emerging from those systems.
And basically how the individual consciousness would affect that randomness, which means when you're using your consciousness in the most coherent way, then the randomness would be
So
detecting
that part comes where how we design this value sharing mechanisms. Okay, we are having this network of random numbers, and then we have this individual. So based on how an individual's random number generator is exhibiting an anomaly or something which we can detect as an interaction of a person itself when it is statistically going incoherent, then we can use that model to reward the person. Yeah. Go ahead, Mark.
Can I just respond briefly, Denise? Is that okay?
Yeah, I was trying to say, and let's let Andrea talk and then Mark respond to that as well.
I think what's crucial for all of us, I mean, it's so good to meet you at last, Mohan. I've met you indirectly and I know so much. Lumi and I connected deeply when we met around this whole coherence aspect. And what the job we have to do as the new paradigm is, it's what I call shifting the definition of success. Like our current success in our current systems is defined by particular things like, have you got a job, have you got a house, have you got money, like have you looked after yourself, right? We need to shift the definition of success to what we want is healthy living systems. And we know we're succeeding because once we have healthy living systems, we know that we can produce, we know that we can balance giving and taking, we know that we're well, we know that we're happy. Like, so we have a job to do as a group to say there's a new definition of success, and it's coherence and self-actualization. And so the coherence technologies you're talking about are crucial, and how we wire them in to the other aspects of the system. So like the life points and the storytelling, and like, that's why we have to work together, because the story is so important too. But Lumi and I were like totally like on the same page. I don't think they're grasping why coherence and super coherence are the new definitions of success for our new species, like which relates to syntropy as well. Sherry's still here.
Excellent. Great to hear your response to that, Andrea. And now, Mark, did you have something to say or add to the conversation in regards to all of this and what Bret and Andrea are offering?
No, Andrea handled it beautifully. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. Do we have any more questions for Bret and Andrea in regards to what they're creating and how we may synergize?
Sure. Ed here. Let me see if I can get my video on. Here we go. We're just dealing with a situation. We just found out that a couple booked a room in our house for a month on Airbnb, and starting 4 p.m. today. It's like, we already have a full house. So anyway, we'll sort it. I so loved your presentation, Bret and Andrea, and so much thought has gone into this model. And I love the philosophy. We've had some conversations here about this, and you know, a lot of the conversations are around how to organize all these brilliant people and all these brilliant projects, and you know, have you know, concrete things come out of that where we're collaborating and working together. And, you know, in the corporate model, somebody dangles money and everybody jumps for it and falls in line and is you know, in service, right, to who has the money. And of course, you do have sometimes people trying to claw their way to the top, you know, and take control and all that sort of thing. But I think, you know, cultural creatives, we all seem to be very independent minded, and, you know, we all have our own brands and our own ideas, and and it's rare to see that level of collaboration with the cultural creatives. You know, it's always been this issue. So any kind of a system that can, you know, create order or a template or structure that can have us working together, you know, holding on to whatever our brands or whatever it is, the IP and all that, and yet allowing us to groove together in maybe, like you say, a more fractal way is so cool in theory. So my question is, what does this look like in practice? I mean, have you seen a system like this working? It's, you know, beyond the philosophy, like, because when people come together, I mean, in my experience, the biggest challenge is interpersonal in nature. And it has to do with having, you know, rituals around conflict resolution, structure around how are we working together, boundaries, and all this sort of thing. And I'm just kind of curious what this looks like in practice. Have you applied this even on a small scale like that?
It's like talking about my favorite subject. Like, I'm like, oh, I love this subject. Yes, like this Ed was at the heart. Like, so Bret mentioned at the beginning, we had this wonderful vision of a platform for co-creation. We thought we were just going to build it and a piece of software, and we would just share their passions and intentions and come together and co-create. And as we started to go around the world, looking at practicing that in community, that is absolutely not what happens because of what you've just said either. So number one, when we were emerging out of, I mean, I mention it a lot, I assume most people here are familiar with the green meme, but the green meme tends to say when we come together, we're all the same. Everybody has the same vote, everybody has the same say. And we were coming out of that, and what we were seeing, especially in our real world experiments, is, no, cultural creatives are exactly how you explain them to be or describe them. They're absolute, what one of our co-creators calls us alpha cats. They're very strong creative people. They don't want to be merged with somebody else and somebody say, this is what we're calling our project. You've now been absorbed under my umbrella. Like, so what we came to notice through that practice is that synergy, which I want to go back to where Denise started at the beginning of the call, is not parts coming together to become the same. It's parts learning to work together in their absolute sovereignty and individuality, but in a symphony or in harmony. And that's what synergy is. So what we've done is a lot of work around what you're talking about. Number one, the interpersonal is crucial. If you are not in your heart and you're not coherent, number one, you can't for a minute embrace the other person's perspective if it's in conflict with your own. It will be like, I'm right, you're saying it's this, and people will go into I'm right. So number one, we have to get people into the heart and super coherent. A lot of our initiator platform is about helping people do what we call social alchemy, feeding back to each other and saying, why are we not coming into a higher synergy or resonance? So the interpersonal level is crucial, and our tool set includes that. The second part is around the synovation model I was talking about. So it's okay if you bring in our world and we bring a new map. I use that example in this talk. They're not going to become like our new map now, right? It's not going to be a new one thing. It's, David, you get to be your expression with our world, and we get to be new map, but these technologies will work together in a unison, in a synergy. So you get to keep your creative or expression or creativity, your unique part in the Then the other piece is what we worked on a lot is called in our system resonance revelation process. So what that is if people can't come into that synergy where the pieces are working in a harmony, what's the block? So we either do emotional work or we get more creative. And when you ask have I seen it, yes, eventually, because that's been a lot of our work, is understanding why synergy wasn't happening in the way that we thought. So ultimately, yes, when in prototype situations or, you know, playing with this ourselves, the experiences I've had when we've held to, okay, we can't find the synergy of our pieces work together. Andrea, is it because you've got some wounding going on, you're absolutely attached to your own perspective, or is it because we're not creative enough? When we've worked together through that, it's always, I said to Mark, I think he's gone now, the other Mark, it's always so exciting when you break that block and the higher synergy emerges, because we create things we couldn't have created alone, which is synergy, right? So even the what I showed you, the matrix of the wheel, that's a synergy of 3 or 4 different organizations working together. But it absolutely requires this new thoughtware, thinking processes and stuff. It's the major challenge that you're talking about.
Well, I want to just say,
one of them.
like, we have tried it on small scales, and we've made every mistake you could possibly make. I mean, even Andrea and I had an unamicable dissolution with our partner of 7 years, even though we're talking about agreements and coherence and respect and trust. We had to learn that lesson. So what comes up for me is it's like tested to some level by all the mistakes that we've made and other people have made, and listening to those, and then doing the next version of the experiment. And part of that next version of the experiment is if we have like synarchy and we have like, you know, a little bit of fate involved here, a little bit of stuff happening, like the right people, so to say. And then the bigger model of like shared funding where people are getting their needs met. So their primary motive isn't to make $1 zillion so they have a nice house for them and their family, because they're actually given that by the nature of the model that's coming together. And then finding that Marquine or the 100 million to do that first experiment with like 50 projects and 1,000 people. Of course, I think we're going to make tons more mistakes, but I think we will have a strong enough like anchor to work with those mistakes and learn what we all need to learn next. But it certainly would be iterative, and we certainly need to try it with more people and more. But now we're left with the only thing to do is to do it, like to take our learnings and all of your learnings and not be afraid to step into going beyond the pain points that we've had in the past, because we think we all have some answers to those. And then of course, the new problems that will come up.
And one more little thing, because it's important, it relates to what Sherry was talking about, and it's, you just mentioned it, it's why we need syntropic philanthropy. And I was just speaking to Mark Kane, who's gone now, about this. We need donors who are going to say, and philanthropists or funders who say, we want you to work as a syntropic ecosystem. We don't want you competing with each other, because it's actually the funders that create division. They'll go, I'll back this one, but not that one. Then everybody's competing again. So we also need, that's why the model of the funding is crucial. It's like, we're going to fund an ecosystem. So these guys aren't competing and they're co-creating, but it's an important point, Ed. It's crucial. The money, we've seen it divide people all along the way.
Yep. And of course, I've had my lessons too, you know, and I'm a lot more humble. I think what really can help is having clarity around expectations and agreements in place and all that sort of thing. I mean, I guess the idea of having philanthropists put in a big chunk of money and then we all get to share it, that's pretty cool. I've yet to stumble across that myself, you know, and so then it usually is like somebody with money, and then it's like a cat playing with a ball of yarn, you know, I can't help, themselves. But it's beautiful vision, and I do think, you know, like there's got to be, so for instance, each of us has different intellectual properties and cool things we've been working on, and we don't want to lose control of that, you know, like we want to see it blossom in a bigger context that we can all bring to each other. You know, like I'm working on venues. Well, the venues need to be filled with cool experiences and tech and art and all of that. And I don't have all that in my back pocket, you know, so it's like takes a bigger team coming together, each with their own piece. And then coordinating that is, you know, like I said, I mean, if you're writing the checks, then you're just saying, you know, okay, but that's more of a hierarchical model, you know. And I would love more of a circle model or you know, holarchy or whatever terms we're using here, synergy, kind of an arrangement where we're all sort of not equals per se, but see, somehow that's got to work its way into agreements, like legal documents, and this is where I've been the most challenged in trying to create a different kind of business is what's the model for that? Like, where are the templates? Because, sort of the old school way of doing things is very cut and dried. Anybody you meet knows, okay, well, we're going to enter into an agreement. Here's how it's done. And there's some standard ways of handling it. And you have an attorney comes in and here's a few different ways you could do this. And, but if you're talking about a different sort of arrangement, how does that fit into that business world with lawyers and agreements and structuring, and because that's how you set the expectations and the structure within which then lots of things can happen and blossom once everybody has an understanding,
So I'll be brief in response to that. I don't know how long these calls go on for. It's really
way too long. In fact, I do need to run soon, but anyway.
It's awesome to have so much receptivity. It's beautiful. I'm sure it's beautiful when it's the other way around. But just briefly, Ed, again, that's what Holosourcing is about a lot. It's about creating clear agreements between co-creators, like I say, around how they're going to steward together, how they're going to steward synergistic assets and value that's returned from that shared experience, and then translating that into legal agreements. So we've been working a little bit, and it's going deeper with different co-creators. Josh, I have a call with on Monday, who's interested in the agreement field stuff, like leadership, who some of you may be familiar with, and Anna there was a former lawyer. So we're working on how we now, so yeah, we've been prototyping what the high level picture is of those Holosourcing agreements, but now it's around them, like you say, in a way that's lawful, but isn't held back by the old legal system. So it's crucial. We've learned that the hard way, like Bret said.
Cool.
There's also plenty of models and expertise out there around new types of legal entities and trust and all that, but we need, I'll use the word lightly, we need to have that synarchy of lawyers are part of the sector too. They're in the justice section, like enlightened lawyers. How do you think the elite people have done, they make $1 trillion and don't pay taxes? Like, we need everyone on board. I do think there's solutions. Ariel's been looking into it on the call here, other people. I think it's going to actually be quite easy to use the resource of a business or a trust rather than identify with it. So I think it's just a little different than like I own a business to I use a business. I am this corporation to I use this corporation. And that little shift, it's just a tool. Like, we made this agreement, we've come to clarity about our IP and our assets. What's the best vehicle to materialize this in the matrix as it is? Like, is it a CIC out of England? Is it a new kind of B Corp out of California? Is it an offshore trust? And if we have the people in our synarchy also being funded to answer those questions and be in rooms with us and write the new organizational constitution for that entity, I feel like we can slam that. But it's part of the ecosystem. Like you said, it can't happen in, like, we don't want to just hand that off to a bunch of lawyers. We want them to be part of the synarchy and in that holosphere, working holistically with people and holistic accountants and all those kind of experts. I mean, most of us are not into that, but I get excited by the idea of someone being as passionate and knowledgeable about law and common law and legal stuff and accounting as we are about what we do. Because if you put that together, like, boom. Synergy. Yes.
Cool. Got that, Denise? We need a lawyer in the group here.
I put a shout out recently for some people, and some people came forward. So I am in discussion with people. So just so you know, that's part of the big thing is in the synergy. I'm sure you already know. There are a lot of people who want to join us. So how we can get better aligned to share what we have to offer and bring them in and have that lawyer and have that CFO but then I see it as a distributed system that works in multiple different ways in a separate agreement field. Oh, speaking of something. You guys hear that?
Well, you've gone a bit quiet at our side. I don't know what's happened to you, Denise, but you've gone quiet here.
Sorry, guys, I had another phone call coming in at the same time. So, but yes, what I was saying is, yeah, so having that overall system, and I've been saying in the chat, by the way, I've been working and looking at exchange systems and, you know, different harmonic entities for a long time and how we exchange. So, and looking at interfaces, at how we design that. And I know that Bret had suggested that you and I talk about interface design and stuff, Andrea, at some point a while ago when I wasn't ready, but I'm feeling like I'm getting ready to have that discussion. And it would be really great if we could all come together and work on this and like in our pods and bring more people in and be organized how we can really expand and breathe with this. Yeah.
I mean,
I have a question.
I think we're close to using some little pieces of what we've showed in the group to help us have a better picture and to help facilitate conversations. So like, even though it's not all done, just the idea of holosourcing as a principle, like as a model, gives us a better jumping off point when we talk to Ed about what we might do together, because we both know we want to do in this way, that we care about sovereignty and we care about wholeness. You know, just the 7 levels and functions and whatever, like everyone, and it's really not about you, it's about your different intentions, because obviously you can be in different sectors on different levels depending on which part of your own project, because all our projects are Renaissance whole systems oriented. So it's not like, you know, Ed's project is just in the entertainment, you know, sector and in the communication thing, but each one of his intentions, like to put out the video, you could do it like in a more refined way. So there's some work to be done there, but even I think we're close to like offering up some kind of, just let's have some fun. It has to be light enough so people don't get bogged down, but maybe we can learn something and see if it feels good, you know, like generally just, does it feel good to try to coordinate ourselves this way and with some of these things in mind?
Yeah, we could even, I guess that's what Bret's suggesting. I'm guessing with you, Denise, we could start mapping just even the group in different pieces, parts of the wheel using those the multi-dimensional model, and then you starting to present the group that way, and then maybe holding little micropods, exploring their synergies. Then we come back to the whole and just experiencing how that might work, and then everybody bringing their pieces to what, you know, it's not about we give that to you and you just do that. It's more like, how does that then meld with all the other pieces that people are holding? So,
and having some of the conversation, because the nitty gritty, like Ed is saying, is where it all matters. Like, it's one thing to come together like these in our thing and say, oh, I'm doing this and I'm doing this. But when you actually get down to like seriously considering supporting each other and co-creating, you have to approach these kind of conversations, and you have to be able to be vulnerable, and you have to feel safe, and you have to feel like people are going to listen to your needs, and vice versa. So it's all part of the process, the alchemy to the legal to the structure, like, and that's what I'm most excited about a group like this. Like, we're going to span the gamut from being able to be spiritual beings, entrepreneurial beings, you know, practical beings, visionary beings. Like, we all have different roles to play, but I think there's a good field here being just created on the love. Like we're saying, like, we define co-creation specifically. We're not talking about a bunch of people that get in a room and say they're co-creating. We're saying co-creation is a worldview, like it's a way of life, and it includes, like, you know, applying David Bohm's work, applying unified theory, like, or field theory, like 4,000 years of mystery school stuff. Like, that's like what co-creation is for us, and it seems like the way through the eye of the needle. Like, it's like, it's fun, but it's serious. Like, it's not for, like, until we can make it more accessible. Like, some of us have to be a little more hardcore. Yeah.
I believe Atlas had a question, but I just wanted to round this out. Hold on for a moment. Yes, I'm really grateful for what you all are doing, because I've been designing and the intricacies on, you know, with other groups who didn't understand what I was visioning. So you all having that whole vision of how it all comes together and all, like, that's really a vision to be able to hold. I could always see the parts and I knew the vision, but like I couldn't speak it, you know, I couldn't. So that's where the groups come together, where our synarchy, our synergy, and whereas we each hold parts and we each are able to speak our part very well, and then we uphold each other in that creation and that flux and flow, so that the system cannot be taken down, and so that it can be real and can be really go forth and be created. So thank you for your art in that. And Atlas, what did you have to say or question?
Yeah, thank you. I just had a question about the creation of the Constitution, because I thought it's a perfect example. You know, anything that the group does is an example of how the group operates. And so I just wondered, with the creative of the Constitution, like I think it was Josh was saying, these things can be continually updated by more opinions, and ultimately all the old system is built on is opinions and money. As you said, you dangle and we all go in that direction. So particularly to do with this idea of the syntropic philanthropy, is how money, if it does arrive, is injected, is so important. And I just thought, you know, there's some talk about opinions and how it feels, but there's a danger in being too human-centric and abstract and relying purely on the cognizance of the originator of a constitutional, you know, word or whatever it is, particularly for creating new words, because I saw that's also a key part of the way you do is you create new terms, and that's really beautiful to think differently, but it also creates also a level of abstraction, because transmedia becomes transmedium and we get caught up in our human vocabulary. So I guess my question is there, talking about ecosystems, because I really like the idea of a healthy living ecosystem, is there a way to implement that philosophy directly to have the creation of the Constitution itself based on a system, not on opinions, and it therefore would work, it actually function, it would flow blood, as in money, ideas, integration between all these separate modules, and actually just be evidenced in its workability as a system, and that would result in a constitution. And I think that therefore would be timeless, because even if new people were added, it wouldn't be up to opinions or preferences, because that's our human-centric design. But if we come to the natural law itself, it should work. So that's my question in a long roundabout way, hopefully bringing a lot of things together, is there a systematic and evidence-based way that this constitution itself, as it's phase 0, as you said, can be implemented collectively and in and itself be evidence of the workability of the system you're proposing?
Well, it's really interesting the way you asked the question, Atlas, because a lot of I mean, first of all, in terms of the Constitution, when Josh was asking this question, what I was trying to impart is we've got the whole, what is the Constitution of the current game we're playing? If we think about the game we're in now, like you just said, the rules of the game were kind of designed by some people, like, I don't know, the Constitution of America, like, and all its corporate thinking, but there are unconscious game rules that we've all subscribed to, like we compete, like we use money, like these are all parts of the current game. Did we all sign up to that Constitution? Like, who knows, like in different ways, unconsciously we did. So this particular, the co-creative Constitution, is really a way of trying to describe what the game rules are. So I just wanted to make that clear, because then from the game rules, it determines how we do use money, how we agree to, like, synergize is a principle, right, of the Constitution. It doesn't say you must therefore synergize to create this and have these values. It's really super meta game rules. But to come on to specifically what you were talking about, as long as I've been involved in the design of our systems, I've always believed that the reason that the Constitution is structured as it is because it's systems thinking. It's not just because Andrea thinks like synergy is important. It's more because we've extrapolated, if we're going to be co-creative and the universe is interconnected, it's a principle that we look to consciously be deliberate about synergy, and we consciously look to be deliberate about coherence. So it's really coming out of systems thinking in that way. Now you've asked me the question, I'm like, that's definitely the place it comes from. However, I do take on, that's just at this moment, say, Andrea and a bunch of others' view on what the systems thinking of the Constitution would be. So what we felt is important is the minute we open up the Constitution to everybody's opinion, then it gets green and blobby. and suddenly there's no longer specialists, and somebody's saying, well, synergy is important, synergy isn't important, and we're all having an argument about it. So the constitution is based on hardcore systems thinking. I think therefore what it then looks to do is have these feedback loops in its integrity, otherwise the systems thinking gets lost. But I'll ponder more your questioning, because it's super important. We've had a lot of discussion in our group, you know, like we don't want one central group of people saying this is how it is. So we are really, we see it from a systems theory point of view, the systemic thinking, these are the game rules. If you come into the game, you get a chance to use them and then feedback on it, and it evolves, but through the systems experts then looking how systemically that can be integrated. So that's
exactly, because I think, you know, it's fractal. So however you implement that top level or bottom level, however you'd like to think of it, top down, bottom up, that is going to be evidence in the echoes of how that system operates. So and I'm happy to jam on it further, but if it's based on opinions, the whole system is going to be based on opinions. So it'd be great to see it have a lifeblood and a pulse that is measured objectively. And then the whole system would go forward in that way. And lawyers, you know, I think we don't have to impose new laws. The laws are already evident because it's natural law. So it's really discovering what is already at play and measuring that and depicting what's there, rather than creating new systems or new signals to then depict. So I'm really fascinated about how the actual constitution itself is created as evidence of the system. Thanks for your time.
I'm so excited, Atlas. I just have to say, in our team, like as a systems person, I would often be like, it just can't be, we have to be able to show our workings, show the logic, and it is a natural, it is, I used to call them the meta-orgonomic principles, because they're coming from natural law, how the universe is operating, we're observing that, and we're designing systems based on those natural laws. So it's totally from that place. It's nice to hear reflection. It's something I care about a lot.
Thank you.
I'd love to share a piece on that. Hi, everyone. Are we all here? Because I've been sitting with this for a really long time. And there's a place where, you know, we're speaking of natural law and where the Constitution needs to mimic it. And there's the piece of how do we actually have the Constitution, the agreement self-organize? And not only self-organize from like an ideal place, but interfacing where things are right now. Mark said, I think, economic transition bridges. And we need to create that bridge so it's consistently self-evolving and reflecting where we're actually at in the present moment. And the metaphor I've used a lot, because there's this whole conversation of like inclusive and exclusive around that co-creative process. And what I strongly feel from my observation of nature is that the seed in which that actually bursts really comes from a small group. Someone quoted someone earlier about, you know, the islands of coherence, and it really needs to come from, well, I could say, a single island of coherence, that where everyone's really meeting, we're meeting synergistically, coherently at the highest in complete embodiment and self-sovereignty. And the example I always use is with mycelium and mushrooms, because it has to be birthed from an exclusive process, and then once it's stabilized, it can transition to be fully inclusive because the foundation is stable. And the best example is with mycelium. If you're growing mycelium, you know, artificially, or mushrooms, you have to grow it in a completely sterile, closed, exclusive environment. But once the mycelium fully establishes itself, you can remove it from that exclusive environment and throw it into an inclusive environment, and other organisms will no longer compete with it, and it's stable. And so there's the process that we've been dealing with, is how do we reach that stability point within the exclusion zone to reach the inclusion zone. And as you're saying, it's that interpersonal relationship piece in the exclusion zone that's been sort of the consistent breaking point with all that. The thing I want to add is that's really important, in my opinion, when you start to understand Feng Shui and like social Feng Shui, is how do we create the environment, the container, to actually birth that exclusive process so it can become inclusive.
Oh my God. Ariel, it's so good to see you. And I love your languaging. Like, I want to talk to you. I'd love to bring that in. We've talked for years about the seed fractal and how the seed fractal has to be super, super coherent, because it can't hold, it's what you're saying, yeah, with this principle. If it's not super coherent, once other energies come in, it starts to lose the coherence and the resonance. So we have to be, it has to be so strong at that nucleus type piece of the unfolding. it's also the same with resonance. Yeah, once you get so many resonating together, then it can expand and go viral. But that early part of the resonance building is the tricky part. So we are also seeing that. That's why we've said for years that it has to start with the small groups who are many small cells who are super coherent. And once they can embody the system, it gets easier for others to then come in. But yeah, we've been seeing that principle for a long time. But I like your languaging better than ours, so I'm like, I need to talk to you. The mycelial thing is a great naming of that.
Absolutely. As well as I'll let everyone know, because I started out, you know, I think I was the first speaker with this. I've been sort of like AWOL. I've become suddenly a dad of a 5- and 7-year-old the last 3 months, and it's been very time consuming. And I'm currently, just like Stephen had to leave, I'm displaced by the fires right now. We're in Maine. It's been pretty horrendous for us. And so I've just been building out a business, and we currently are without housing. And it's been a thing for many of us in California. And so even right now we're like, are we going back to California? We don't know. And so that's a little bit of my life.
So much love. I mean, catch up. I know you always check in with Bret, but yeah, sending you love. I was on another call last week and the same thing was happening. And we were having like, how do we deal with building the new while we're hospicing the old and it's falling apart? Like,
yep. Mm-hmm.
Sending you so much love.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Hey, Bret and Andrea, I have a question. Nice to meet you, Andrea. I've worked with Bret off and on here and there. Love you guys' stuff. It's very far-ranging, comprehensive, and everything. But my question is, because you talk about natural laws, so first question is, are you familiar with John G. Bennett's work of Gurdjieff and what he does with the dramatic universe and how he actually goes into the laws and how they actually work in terms of a spiritual transmission of the Sufis for, you know, the real thing? So when you say the laws, these guys actually have it down to a T, and John G. Bennett put that stuff out. So that's the first thing. And the reason I say that is because when you work with things like the gene keys and you start to understand those laws in the Enneagram and how the gene keys and the Enneagram work together, which is something I do specifically, and I haven't really seen anybody do it like I do it yet, and how you could use it in what you do, because a lot of the things you're saying are still theory. And so you're saying, well, based on what I've seen, but we're moving to something we've never been in before. We're moving into a place where consciousness is evolving. You can't really plan that out too much, or you're going to limit your experience of your receptivity to what's coming in that's new from so many different angles. So one of the best, so my question to you is, if you haven't checked out John G. Bennett, the Dramatic Universe series and Gurdjieff and that stuff, please do, because they talk about how to stack laws and how they work from what's called world 6 at a galactic level all the way down to world 96, where you get into positive and negative ways of dealing with things and working them out in the world. Beautiful stuff. But then, like I said, a lot of something that hasn't been done a whole lot is taking those stackings, what I call reality stacking, and bringing it into something like the gene keys, where you can actually start to take an idea. A lot of your ideas can be taken through the gene keys, and it's not so much that you use the gene keys, but you take your idea and take it through a shadow version, a gift version, and a siddha version. And if you, and some people can do this, because my technology is the human. That's the technology I work with. All the rest of it depends on that. So to me, that's always been the most important thing. So things like Tai Chi and Taoist alchemy and you know, Western magical systems, everything that's out there that could evolve consciousness was my field of study of the last 50 years, as well as being initiated by an enlightened being in India, Osho, and all that stuff. So I really did the homework on, well, if we're going to really change something, we've got to be able to change ourselves with it as we go along. Otherwise, we're just talking theory, and we're basing it on our best guesses of what we've done in the past and some intuition that we might have about the future. So that's my question, is how much have you actually looked into some of the traditions that actually know how to future space stuff? And when you reality stack and you go up into cities, you're going into your future self. I mean, that's something that I'll introduce if people aren't aware of. That's what you do when you when you work with systems that know how to accelerate your consciousness. It actually taps you into a future version of yourself, and that can really help you when you start to become your own angel. And those are things that are very real. And they're actually, I mean, that's the kind of thing I've been working on for the last 2.5 decades. So I'd love to hear a response on that.
Well, first of all, it's nice to meet you, Dharmendra.
Yes, nice to meet you too, Andrea.
Because I think I was saying as we talked about the Together Life system that actually what it is, it's a mind, body, spirit management system. It's not actually what humans have done is they've completely focused on the outer manifestation of reality, not understood everything's coming from the human. So if we know how to manage human and human coherence, and then we know how to do that socially, we're off, right? So I completely align with you that the human is the core technology. So actually the wheel I was showing you, those 7 functions are really a scaled up version of the human 7 chakras, and how we balance the 7 chakras to become coherent. So socially organizing by those functions is just a larger macrocosm of the microcosm. So I don't know the guy you were talking about. If you can send me the information, I'd love it. But
sure, I'll put it in the chat.
Most of my work, I didn't share this on the presentation, I'm a channel. So I've been channeling since pre-2012 on these systems and how they need to be designed. And a lot of my channeling started to come through as Chinese medicine. So I retrained in Chinese medicine, and really what the Together Life system is, it's mimicking Chinese medicine thinking, which comes from, Chinese medicine is really, to me, an integral system of understanding the human. So the Together Life system is taking a lot of stuff from that behind the scenes and then looking to say, look, how do you become a super coherent human? How do you free up all your energy so you can actualize, so you can create in balance and in balance with being and doing, and realize yourself and do that in unity with the rest of the field. So
yeah, I could totally relate with you on that, because Tai Chi I've been doing for 40 years. So I made my body the acupuncture experiment station, I guess you could say. But I really found that one of the biggest keys was taking that Eastern stuff, which I was attracted to, and obviously you are, and finding the essence of the Western stuff. Because when you start to bring it together, then those Western ways of seeing things, we don't realize when you start getting the higher insights from the Western side, it blows your mind, because we really are more conditioned by the Western than the Eastern. So a lot of stuff can get through and impact us more easily, psychologically speaking, when it's coming from the Western stuff, because we want something that's unknown. It's more interesting. It's more adventurous. Let's go discover the East, because we don't come from there. So, and that's how I was with it. And I don't know if you were, but you could probably relate a little bit to that, because it's mysterious. It's unknown. But that's why I mentioned John G. Bennett and Gurdjieff and all that stuff, because it comes very much from the Midwest, Middle Eastern, Middle Western Sufi stuff. And it's got a lot of stuff in it that I love the Chinese stuff, but it's not complete. It doesn't have the enneagram. It doesn't have all the pieces, but what it does have is solid gold, but it doesn't have the whole picture. And that's what I discovered by going back into the Western side and seeing it from that angle. And that's why I was sharing that with you.
Yeah, I will investigate what you recommended. I mean, obviously, part of our value set is about being integral, so not polarizing thinking. I mean, it's at the heart of co-creation for us. All I would say is that what the Chinese thinking brought is an understanding of energy interactions with material ones, and therefore, especially the principle of, I mean, Mark's got the yin-yang symbol behind him. Like all life, even if we look at it from a Western point of view, they talk about homeostasis. So homeostasis is the ability for a human being to live in balance and create enough life energy. And if we think of Buckminster Fuller, and we think of all the scientists who are talking about entropy, syntropy, or Irving Laszlo and coherence and supercoherence, these are other Western articulations of what the Chinese were talking about with yin-yang balance producing qi. It's the same thing from a different angle. So a lot of the modeling behind the scenes, I mean, we have in the system the social acupuncture point system, and that's like, let's identify what the most crucial thing we could do next creatively to optimize the system. It's the same thing with your body. Yeah, where shall I stick a pin to release a block? So there are lots of analogs, and we do our best to be integral, and we test everything on ourselves. I mean, I use Chinese medicine to pretty much heal cancer, all sorts of stuff.
And you guys are really into Buckminster Fuller, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you will love John Bennett. He goes into every single number in the divine meanings of all of them. That's why I say, John G. Bennett, you gotta go there, because I bet a lot of Buckminster Fuller's understandings, if I remember correctly, I can't remember, I think he tapped into that stuff. And these are the guys that inspired Frank Lloyd Wright and those kind of people. These are the guys behind those guys, John G. Bennett and Gurdjieff and those people. So it'd just be worth it if you don't know. I put it in the chat, so hopefully you saw that.
Thank you for the recommendation. Yeah, Bret often refers to himself as
And really nice to hear where you come from. I'm really excited that you're Chinese medicine, because that's like, yeah, of course. I mean, that's that part of it. As far as the body and the horizontal experience of organic life, nothing better than that, than the Chinese way. Tai Chi. Huh?
Just to share a little story, I mean, I was in this journey like 3 years along, and then my guides just constantly started talking in Chinese medicine language, like insufficient yin creating excess yang, and I'm like, what the heck? And I couldn't figure it out, so I had to study it. And then I realized through the study of how it related to our systems thinking. So yeah, I was given a bit of a nudge, Demendra, to study it.
That's really cool. Based on all my what happened to me, I mean, if you're interested at some point, I can help you to start accessing higher intelligence intentionally, consciously, specifically. And what I mean by that are somebody's knocking on my door. I'll get back to you. Darn, I was just about to release something cool.
Darmendra is at work, so the door knocks, he has to go answer. Was there someone that wanted to say something? I want to say that, Andrea, I also come from channeling the designs. I'm going to put him on mute. And so, yeah, I channel constantly as well. But I've also seen, because I worked in technology for over 20 years, and I've actually built it and designed it with teams. So I've seen the technology go from vision into creation, and the many different forms of that, and the many different teams and many different ideas of how that comes together. And then also seeing that become, what the reality for people in technology and life and our development, our ascension regularly, and also looking at how to do every phase of the point, and then also make it simple so it's actually understood by the people. This is huge art. So like when we get to creating these different pieces, we look at, okay, what's the minimal viable experience or the minimal viable product, and then testing that. Like we just did, some tests on something, it didn't work out, but it gave us a lot of ideas how we can come together in more synergy of what can help bring this together. So there are points that, how to bring it to the people. What do we need most right now, for instance? What will help humanity most to get people into that that harmony within themselves, so that they can harmonize with each other. That's what I really believe is our target, and that's the consciousness realm, the resonance.
The other thing, Denise, that relates to that, and it relates to Demendra's questions of like, how much is this an embodied thing and not just an abstraction? I would say that the greatest thing we have learned in our journey, and I would say in partnership with my higher self guiding me, is really what was co-creation as the original infinite game, and how we have life experiences, and how life is always helping us realize our soul purpose. So that is the game for me of life. So the more, apart from the tools that we're building, I mean, even in the last month I've had through, is that the first phase we went through is what is the resonance building aspect of co-creation. Then you move into the second phase, which is co-creation. Then there's 2 more phases. My guys haven't explained what they are. But so to go through phase 1 is like finding ourselves and knowing who we are, getting rid of the blocks so we can actually move into true co-creation. Like, I feel more what I've been experiencing is the game of life and how my higher self sees that, and how I've been, cut off from that. So, and then in what is therefore the crucial acupuncture point next, that's why we felt initiator, which is supporting other people to go on that journey to find themselves, get rid of the distortions, is really the thing we can most do for whoever else is now going to embark on that journey. But I mean, that's a conversation for all of us, but minimum viable experience to then lead to minimum viable product, I think is crucial. Like, we can't build these. That was now a naivety in the early days. I came from the corporate world, and I was just like, we'll spec it and we'll build it with a few user interviews. But it was like, no, that's not what this is about. This is about you experiencing co-creation full on, so then you can create from there.
Beautiful, wonderful, exactly. And it's really beautiful how the parts are coming together. And so how we can weave that so beautifully, that's what we're calling in right now. I would really love to see you, Bret and Andrea, come to Tulum this year. We're looking at having an artist residency November, December, January, February. Let's see if we can make this happen. Like what we'll do, if we can really make some of this solid, and that it is, you know, the tourist industry. So and I know that's also, I come from a family that did that. We had hotels and restaurants, and so I have that like ingrained in me. And as well, when I went to Tulum, I was like, this is like a place where consciousness is being seated in humanity. And so how do we create the technologies for that? Mark, would you like to go ahead?
Yes, well done, Denise. And everyone, this is just beautiful. I knew this was going to be a wonderful call. Andrea, I'm working on a lot of the transition models, having brought up that one corporate model, but lately there's a whole bunch of others in the economic transition models, the governance transition models, the justice transition models, all of them. You know, there's the bridges in the two-loop model from the Berkana Institute. We're trying to build a bridge from the old mindsets of separation, competition, and so on, give them a transition plan to the emerging systems of which you guys are at the pinnacle of. You have the largest holon of this evolution. And so I would love to work with you on some of those. We have David Atkinson. I posted a couple of links in the chat. David Atkinson and Gene Russell from Holo have been doing some really, really good work on some of the business and legal transition pieces for digital currencies around the world as to where to put your organization so that you can leverage all the new digital currencies and new economic frameworks. And I see that as being very closely aligned with the Holosourcing as a mapping function of how we can map these resources that are in transition. So would love to work with you guys deeper on this and help manifest all of these models. You know, I'm in the middle of the hub usually because I'm extreme generalist, right? So I love touching on 144 groups that are in each of the 12 sectors and what stages there are, because there's multiple dimensions of each of the 12 sectors, like you mentioned. So I'd love to work with you closer.
I think, Mark, I mean, we've been in this stage of deep, like we talked about research, design, development, embodiment for years. I mean, what I had through, and I think it applies to all of us that are here, it must do, is we're now moving into materialization. So the second phase is materialization. And as part of that, I am certainly intending to be more outward looking and co-create with you all. I know I'm pretty much being inward looking with the co-creators I was working with. So Mark, I'd love to, you know, I would love to work with you more, and also you, Denise, and everybody who is here, who've been talking about co-creating. I think in terms of the transition, Mark, it's crucial. I mean, even when we worked with Barbara, she always talked about, we have to have the transitionary people because they can't leap. It's like spiral dynamics, they can't leap to the new. So we have to welcome them in and help them make that leap. And in particular, Holosourcing, even though I didn't go into the depths of that, has transitional thinking in it. That's why in a new world, we would just have a commons and we would know how we're sharing. But of course, that's why we have a membrane with the current system and understanding how a co-creative system interacts with a competitive system and flows value and so forth. So we've been thinking about that a lot. There's lots of pieces. I'd love to talk to you. Nico, who was an original part of our tech team, who you're familiar with, not everybody might be here, he's just starting to, he was one of the chief developers at Holochain. He talks to Gene Russell regularly, and Nico's now starting to come back to some of the stuff we were talking about with the new agent-centric technology that also relates to David, and he's also linked to the work Gene's doing and Holo REA and all of that, and then there's the seed stuff. So that's all on my mind, Matt, like how we also bring that in. So there's some, I'm just sharing some connections in the direction, but of course would love to work with you on that, absolutely.
Yes, and just some very simple dialogue groups, you know, they don't have to be very large to get a lot of synergy going. The larger the dialogue group, it gets a little disconnected just in wanting to say something and stop listening, right? And so the smaller dialogue groups, like the World Cafe found of, you know, maybe 5 people, is a really good platform for synergizing when you get a couple of generalists in there that help tie the pieces together, which you are. So I'd love to form them in each of the sectors. That would just be wonderful to have dialogue groups along that line.
We've been talking to Mark Kane, who was on the call earlier, about the Constitution, and then beginning to start. We're also in another group that works off the back of Barbara Marx Hubbard's work, which was, they originally started out because of her synergy. I can't remember. Sherry would know. If Sherry, I don't know if Sherry's still here, but it was one of Barbara's groups. They are interested in, they do work which they call small intimate groups, which is about resonance building, and they're supporting this kind of thing. But I think that anyway, with all these different pieces going on, and even with this particular group, we could start to map out what we think these early initial points of synergy are. So in the production area, working on the code, like on this piece, we've got, say, David, and we also know Nico's working on that, and we know, and then we want to gather them into a dialogue. Working on the transition is this, and then we start to hold dialogues, a resonance building around them until we can formally be situated in a structure to work together more effectively. I think that would be, I mean, I'm just thinking that now from what you're saying, that we could move to that pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's a beautiful way from David Bohm in his dialogue method. It is very effective in kind of peeling away to get the language right. You peel away all the old patterns that are no longer serving. You find the assumptions that are being made in the design. It's a great system design tool of using Bohmian dialogue, because you just keep going around saying, oh, you're not judging somebody's ideas, you're just listening deeply and seeing if there's any patterns from a past system that no longer serves or is arbitrary in the new system. And you come up with the new language, which you guys are expert at, creating new language. And when you get in a group like this, you come up with, you know, syntropic philanthropy, nice little pieces that allow us to build those bridges to that new consciousness. Thank you so much. You guys are brilliant. I absolutely love you. It's an unconditional love.
We love you, Matt, so much. You hold such brilliant space for all of us. I'm sure it's not just us two, but all of us. And when you were talking, you reminded me that, so I didn't share today, we created something called the co-creation journey. Mark, I think you've seen it. It's 7 major steps, but point 3 is synergize. Synergizing, as we've all been talking about, involves particular things. It's not the same as once we've synergized and we can actually do stuff together, but synergy, and that's why I think you're doing such a beautiful job, as Sherry said, Denise, involves a lot of feminine energy. It involves a lot of willingness to sit and listen to other perspectives and fully receive them, because how do you bring your piece into synergy with somebody else's if you can't receive the other piece? Like, so we have a number of processes to facilitate that. We also have what we call synergistic engagement, some guidelines, and the kind of things you will experience. But really, it's what you're suggesting, Matt, now I'm hearing you, is the beginning to support the synergization of these different, what we would call holospheres or pods, whatever. But I think that would be a beautiful thing to start attempting. And it does require absolute Bohmian thinking. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, well, there was an interview you did that really cleared this for me regarding the divine feminine energy and the soft focus of the feminine energy, which is different than the male focus, goal orientation, which is limiting the possibilities. So in infinite potential, you have to have the feminine energy, which can be open to all of these beautiful possibilities of connection. And I've always tried to move in that direction and never close out anyone. So when anyone presents something, just recognize it as a gift, and look even deeper for the divine gift in whatever they're talking about, and try to tease that out because you know it's there.
Absolutely. And just, I know we've done a bit on this subject, but I just feel like I have a forum that's holding a space for synergy in particular. Is without that feminine energy, the emergence doesn't happen. There's just nowhere in the world. I mean, we saw it over and over. People coming to Synergy Hub, that I've got a project, this is how it's going to be, and push, like it's all, and it's like, how do we link these things together if we don't understand each other? So synergy doesn't happen without that first feminine piece, and the willingness to also respect each other. And even if you have different points of view and seemingly conflicting points of view, to go, actually, I can be in my heart and have humility to understand I don't see yet how these things come together, and sit with that. And only with that does the emergence happen. And my guys used to describe it as very sexual, which Barbara did too. So like it's like a building and then we finally get to like the climax of, oh wow, that's what we're creating together. And and that's why she likens co-creation to procreation. So yeah, that feminine energy. And it's it's in our synergistic engagement guidelines. It's not a part of the culture. It is in this field. This is beautiful. I mean, I just didn't, like I've said it once and keep going on, but this has been beautiful, but without this kind of energy, it just doesn't work. We don't get there.
The way I see it, and I'm imagining that maybe David might see something similar like this. I always see things in how it can be programmed or how it can be articulated in design, and how it can, and I always see like the holons or the blobs and spheres with tentacles of energy or rays of light, and where they come and meet are the agreement fields. And when you're shaking hands in celebration, gratitude, love, delight, all the coherence fields, this is when we are, creating a breathing, moving, expanding a form that has tensegrity and can continuously, work and like undulate together and dance. And so when we have, everyone being like a sunlight of rays of light, and when these rays of light connect in that beauty and then the many, many different spheres, then we have this really beautiful web of creation together, and then that's the new fabric of reality. And so that's also like how I see it as it being designed, the World Wide Web, and how these pieces come together, and then also how we make the exchanges and the design. And yeah, David, do you have something to say about that? I can imagine that you have a lot of vision about how this is integrated in a design kind of format. I know that that's your gift. I would love to hear a little bit about it.
Yeah, hi guys. I thought maybe I should say something throughout the whole call. It's just so many people. I just get like, I don't know, maybe social anxiety. I don't know when the good part to join the conversation. There's so many people talking. Yeah, as I was saying, like I realized in these calls when I'm recording, you don't see the chat. So I'm inputting everything into the chat, but I thought maybe I should use my voice. It's actually probably better to actually use my vocal cords.
David, we're busy listening, so I'm sorry if we've missed you.
No, it's okay. No, I just been chatting like in thing, but I really should talk more. But it's like when everyone's talking, you never know how to join a conversation. I really struggle with that. I don't know the good time. So when there's less people now, it's easy for me to join. Yeah, I was just saying exactly what Denise said about, yeah, I can't wait to like connect more with you guys. Like I've been following you guys for ages, and I just feel we've got so much amazing synergizing to do. So I really want to come down to Glastonbury really soon, like especially while we're still in the same country, because you know how we always get called to different parts all the time. So I just thought while we're all in the same landmass, it'd be good to meet up. But my main thing is about how to gamify and integrate everything. And yeah, it's just amazing. I love your presentation as well. I was saying earlier on, I've just been looking forward to this for ages, and it's so great you guys all finally connect. I know you'll get on really well. But it's so much stuff that I have to go from and study all your stuff, because I'm in focus more on, like I said, the architecture and the gamification and integration, and that's what my head's completely filled with. But I need to understand every single thing you said, like all these words. I've heard of them, but all these S's, and like I know some of them, but like I really got to study this, and I thought best people study from you and Bret and Mark and everyone else here. And then that's my gift is to convert everything you're saying and how to gamify and integrate it, and the overlaps we have is so. I have more overlaps with you guys, with Bret and Andrea, more than anyone else, because the Infinite World game, the Avatar Quest thing, the alchemy part, it's what I'm seeing as well. But I see the other side of the mountain, and we're looking at the same mountain, but I see the other part of it. And during your presentation and talking, I see there's a lot of gaps I still have. So I love to just pick your brains and just figure out, what bits connect up and how we can gamify it, because I just feel that Togetherland is another name for our world. Like I said before, it is another half. It's upper half of our world. I just know it is. I can feel it. The Infinite game, the Bretminster. We've got pieces of the same game, and I keep saying this, Dave. I know you got probably tired of banging on about it. Like that's why I keep saying about seeds. And they want to create an infinite game. You want to get infinite game. Our world is an infinite game. Let's not create 5 infinite games. Let's create one infinite game where it's fully unified and integrated. Because the old world of silos and all trying to create 10 copies of the same thing is over. Like we've got to just get on the same page and just coordinate. And I'm sorry for in the past. I've learned so much listening to you guys, and I was too much of my masculine energy and pushing and trying to force things so it's ready. And now I've learned more. I should have just backed off and just been more receptive and listened and trusted more in divine timing. And now I'm starting to see all my mistakes and lessons, and it's really beautiful. But I just had to be patient, and now I'm starting to see how it was all fine. But now is the time when we integrate. I was trying to do it too early because I'm always in the future, being visionary, and I struggle with time. Like Mark knows, I'm not good with the timelines. I just see every quantum. I see everything as happening now, and that's the problem. When I see everything, I'm feeling like it's happening now, but I was seeing 5-7 years into the future. But now finally, and now it's caught up with where I was. So, so now, yeah, I'm looking forward to really engaging with all, and I can't wait till we'll get together in a physical space. It's been amazing when we can all get together. Like I know it's our dream we're all having one super synergy hub, and that's going to be really electrifying. It's just going to be, and I think that's probably when the event triggers. The energy will be so high, we're just going to go to another dimension, literally.
Have synergy hubs arising all over the world, actually. So you can go to Glastonbury, Tulum, Ibiza, and a few other places.
Yeah, but I mean, like one big party. I like one big party, and we're all there together in the same space. That'd be amazing. I think it's going to happen eventually.
Yeah, I think it's happening very soon. Yep.
Maybe another dimension.
Always there too.
We used to call it the synergistic network when we had Synergy Hub, but we always saw, like you've just said, Denise, this emergent network, that the hubs are totally networked. Sure. And David, like, I know it's been very frustrating. There's something that, like, we also learned, which you just reminded me of. Well, there's 2 things that you're talking about that we also learned that probably relevant, since this group is very interested in synergy. One is, when there's very similar pieces, how do we get them working together? Because they're like, well, I'm doing that and you're doing that. So one of the principles is finding the nuanced distinctions. So for example, David, you and I have had very similar, like you say, we have very similar visions. Infinite World Game was the attempt to gamify the Together life system. And then we're like, why are we doing it? David's thinking about that. So it's part of the synergization process is like, oh, now we've come together. I thought I was looking at this, but clearly I'm a gamification technology specialist, and maybe TLS, you're more social process specialist. So that's just one little thing we learned. And the other one is around bandwidth. So what starts to happen is that Ed was talking about this, is once you get more than maybe 6 people or a different number of organizations, synergizing starts to become overwhelming and difficult. People get overwhelmed. It's like, I'm trying to understand, like you just said, David, all of their TLS thinking, and I'm trying to understand like all of the vision of the Holo Web with Nico. It's like, I'm going to need 3 years to take all that in. But what we saw happening is people started to get feel crazy. So we started to develop the concept of membranes, which is like a group gets together, then it puts a membrane around it saying we're not onboarding anymore now until we've synergized this, because there'll be too much emergence. So unfortunately, David, you hit me. Josh, we were just talking about this with Josh when we were deliberately saying we're going to hold a membrane around us. And it was very deliberate, because after Synergy Hub, where there was 100 people trying to synergize, we wanted to have the opposite. So
quite intense.
Membrane a bit more again, like after doing some deep synergizing. But that's also important, where we have to keep the fractals, the whole on small as groups, because they basically blow their circuits. If there's too much synergizing, they blow their circuits. We can't wait to co-create with David. We've obviously always seen the resonance.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be very beautiful. Like, it's just, and that's the key. I just know it's divine timing, and when we finally all integrate and bring our pieces together, that is what's gonna like trigger the event, and that's what's gonna bring in the new earth. That's it. When we finally plug our pieces together, it's like it's something like out of a film. You know, you see like a golden jigsaw puzzle. I see, and like all glowing the pieces, and when you finally put that final piece in, that the whole tapestry just comes alive and comes to like a 3D holographic blueprint, and then expands, and then that's the base of the new earth. Like literally, we're looking at like a 2D jigsaw puzzle, but when you finally put that final piece in, like it's just gonna be magic, and it just gets more and more exciting, because like more and more I learn about other people's pieces, it just like my excitement, or is it super sex you call it? I don't know. It just goes through the roof, and it's like yes. My soul is like yes. I can't wait to integrate this, because like I said, I eat APIs for breakfast, and I love integration, and gamification is my specialty, and I love the more bits I can find how to integrate together, like the more excited I get, and it's just like and that's one of my gifts. I can see Lumi's like me as well. We're like an integrator. We can see how the pieces fit together. We kind of see like people had building silos in the membrane. I get that now, and my mistake was like I've been too far in the future and trying to bring it together before it's ready, and now like it's time to start bringing the pieces together, and it's just beautiful to see how all bits all overlap. It's going to be very exciting now, so hopefully we can meet up soon, and I can
Barbara,
steps.
obviously Barbara came up with suprasex. I don't know how many of you
Suprasex.
I don't know how many of you are familiar with this, like, and when we were at Synergy Hub, it actually refers to the synergy, the coming together of genius and vocational arousal. We feel excited when we're around shared genius and resonant genius. And when we had Synergy Hub, people actually started to experience it, but they were going around saying, I don't want to leave Synergy Hub because of all the suprasex. And I used to be like, what you're saying, like people must be wondering what we're up to there. But
I want to say something.
Big synergy orgy hub.
This conversation reminds me of something that gets me aroused. And also a Bohemian dialogue group I want to have, Mark, with philanthropists, because I think Sherry's people have a lot of assumptions. And I think one of the issues, like, Ed said, how are we going to find people like to give the money like under that condition? First of all, it's my life's work, so I'm always biased. Like, I'm on the planet to find these philanthropists. I just don't think I can do it alone, but I think they're out there. But I think it's about standing strong for what we believe in, and really employing the idea that we can say no, like that money is not scarce. So the reason I'm saying that is what I got aroused by is I want philanthropists to understand that funding this is part of the process. Like funding all of us to be focused and have these conversations is part of the R&D. If you were in a big company like JPL Rockets or Ford, they would have a budget for people to just sit around brainstorming because they understand the value of the creative people in the basement who actually come up with the stuff that everyone else implements. And even from an old paradigm perspective, I just don't sometimes understand why philanthropists can't understand the value, but I don't think it's that they can't. I think people don't say that to them and that they don't stand strong in that. And they revert back to like, when they start saying opposite or making assumptions, then people start collapsing and then telling them what they want to hear, rather than saying, actually, sir, we want 100 million and we want it under these conditions. And we're looking for people that are our tribe who get it. And if you're not the person, we'll just move on. And
Exactly.
if we had that arrow of intention rather than like breaking down or like being in fear that the person we're talking to who's rich or whatever, if we have that arrow of intention, I think within months or whatever, like we'll actually attract the people on the planet who are waiting for us, because we're just like, we're not messing around here. We're not interested in your money or whatever. If you can't be in a Bohemian dialogue, because if you can only give us money because your last experiment failed, because somebody wasn't coherent, you know, and because of this, like, we can honor that, but we can't have you placing those projections and those limitations on us. Like, we're here to do something. We're going to make mistakes. You know, if some of your money can't be attributed to mistakes, then I don't even understand what kind of investor you are anyway, because all investments from an old paradigm thing are fraught with risk and unicorns, and people lose hundreds of millions of dollars every day, like on failed businesses. And now we're talking about the planet survival. So all of that put together, it's like, what's our story around funding, which has been my journey for 10 years. Like, I want to find a group of people that stick to the story. Like, this is our story and we're sticking to it. And we're going to wait until we find people. And this is the bat signal we're putting out. And this is why we care about syntropic philanthropy and spiritual philanthropy. And this is why it's important. And with people like you guys, with all of your past expertises, like, you can describe to them like how we're going to use the money efficiently and respectfully, and how there's a roadmap, and that we're going to bring people together, and it might take a year to do synergy, and then we're going to come into pods. We can tell that story. There's no problem with providing them the left brain sort of, you know, understanding, but if it needs to be matched by the maverick, preposterous, like, and we also need to be loved here. And you need to take the same amount of risk that we take. We all live on the edges. Like, we trust universe, and we have gifts, and we give them all. And you have the chance to play some of your good fortune. And maybe this is your role in this moment, isn't to like tell us how to use your money, is to give the money for a good cause or whatever that is. So it just reminded me, like, we easily collapse into that, again, masculine production thing. And like, we also need to be given funds to do it, even what we're doing right now, but fully do it. Like, so David's not thinking about how do I get funding, and we can go to
how do I eat, and how do I stay alive this week? And like, I know we're all in the same boat. I know we're all the same. It's crazy. And all these investors, like they waste all this money, and it breaks my heart. You see GoFundMe and Kickstarter campaign. I'm reading a Kickstarter book now, and you've got all these crazy projects like writing just like some bullshit in the sky, or just some really ridiculous things gets 500,000, $1 million funding. I'm like, well, the planet, oh, we don't give a fuck about the planet, fuck it, let it burn. But we can do this really cool thing and enjoy the last days of Earth, like being stupid gimmicks. I'm like, what's wrong with this planet? Sorry, yeah, I just don't understand it.
Hello. Take a deep breath. Close your eyes. Imagine the Earth. See all the beautiful beings on the Earth who are here for the light, for love, for life creation. Know they exist. They are connected with the heartbeat of Earth as you are. They are in rhythm and rhyme, learning to connect with the essence of their nature, the nature of Earth, the nature of life, animated in time and form. They are breathing the flux and flow. They are in heart coherence with our flux and flow. We see them, they see us. They feel us, we feel them. In gratitude for their existence, they are in gratitude for ours. We are synergizers. And when we see the dream of all the dreamers who are dreaming the same dream, we awaken to it together. Take a deep breath. Breathe that into your body. Feeling all the grace of that light filling your body with all that connection, all that love, all that thriving light. And breathe out with gratitude, releasing all that doesn't serve, and grounding into the gravity of this love that we are and that we're connecting to in others. The abundance is here, and it wants to grace us as we want to grace the earth with creations for life, thriving together. Breathe that in. Feel it. Imagine it. See it. Open yourself up to the grace and the gratitude of all who are here to give their heart and soul and enjoy and love the connections that we orchestrate in the symphony of the cosmic new design we are awakening together. Breathe that in. Let it fill your body with that light. Hold it. Let it circulate around in your body and shift any old frameworks and forms, mind, thought, goals that do not serve. And let it go. Release them out of your bubble. And the light and gift of everyone's nature connect to this life-thriving creation. And sigh and release, letting it be. Letting it settle into your being. We are so lucky to be graced with each other's presence on outward in a weaving, interconnected matrix of life on earth, with earth, together. Thank you, illuminated beings. Woo! Thank you for your gift. And know we are connected to all those who want to offer and do the same thing, and that we're coming into this space in divine timing. And just so you know, I have been asked multiple times. I'm often connected to these kind of people. I have groups of people who have been telling me about these philanthropists for a long time, and I didn't have anything that I could give because I was not with the group of people. So it exists. They're out there, they're looking for us like we're looking for them. So what they wanted me to do is bring them a proposal. That's where we have the minimal viable experience, minimal viable product. We have the whole thing. That's where we are organized and we check in with ourselves. Am I in coherence? How can I release any of these old frameworks that no longer serve, such as thinking that these people have to come to that point. They are coming to that point. We want that, they want that. So everyone's synergizing differently in their unique gifts and their unique keys. So remembering that and envisioning that every day, connecting with Earth, connecting with the energies of these people. They are here, and we're we're awesome. Life is awesome. Humans are awesome. Our creations are awesome. just remember that, like how marvelous, magnificent we all are, and we're deepening in that glow, and we're becoming those radiant stars of golden light, connecting and interweaving together. So let's do this. Let's organize. Let's have some more do calls. I would call this a have call, because it's about saying what we are in creation of in our silos, and then how the point of it is how do we synergize from there. So if people would like to start making some proposals of times to meet, perhaps we can have 1 or 2 do meetings during the week. I know we have now another have call on Tuesday, or maybe that's a do call, I'm not so sure. And then of course the be calls are where we get into these coherent states where we release old pains and call in the new life of creation. And that's part of the systems that I look forward to creating, some entrainment systems and media and technologies that help people do that. So I would really love to have a do call with you, Bret and Andrea and Mark, and a few others who are very much on the philanthropy kind of edge of what is our product, our minimal viable product, and whoever else, you know, and having representatives from the different pods, and then being able to have these written out. Like, I do have it a little bit mapped, but I personally am not going to like map these things on my own time. I need to have people there with me, and I need to have people in. Otherwise, I get overwhelmed if I'm alone at this point. So, and then there's certainly probably people who are better at that, so also calling that in. And the more organized we get, the more we have people to put into the shell of our infrastructure and our creation, the more we can have more macros, more writers, more technologists, Superman, and more architects. And so, yes. I would love to, and specifically, like, can we get together in Tulum? I would like that to be our first project, to see if we can get funding for that, and help us have an artist residency. We have 8 casitas offered to us November 1st to however long we want. So it is high season at that point in Tulum, so it'll be busy, and they've not been doing COVID pretty much the whole time, and everyone's totally fine. So, you know, people are wearing masks in town, but in the beach, they're not. So there's a lot of great times to come together with people, but also heal and connect with nature and connect with each other. But then we can come together in the office and like have our work times and our creation. So it's like that coherence field creation, but also that creation due time. So Mark, did you have something to say?
Yeah, just a timely synchronicity. Just had some, I just flew out to Denver a couple weeks ago. Actually, I was flown out to Denver a couple weeks ago for some investors in my mom's stuff regarding hemp and the microbiome. But they were the former executives of Quest Communications, and they were very corporate minded, but when we sat down and I started sharing with them the instability of the current economy and the process of hedging your investments, and pointing to the new distributed decentralized economies and the new wave of conscious organizations, and how there's so much data to back up that this is the emerging system, that they should not put all of their money into traditional investment, that they should put actually a majority of it into the emergent systems. And when I started explaining this in language they understood, they were just over the moon, you know, kind of, this is exhilarating. And so, yes, Bret, we know that that's possible. We know it's out there. Everyone on this call kind of knows it was always there. There's so many pieces of, you know, guerrilla marketing and all of the things that they could identify as, yes, we do have to get around the FDA. We do have to get around governmental agencies. We do have to get around these old limiting patterns. and they were just exhilarated and wanted me to propose an outline for them to shop to investors, because they had access to like $1 billion and they wanted to know where it could go, not just for my project, which doesn't cost that much, but there's so many other wonderful projects that do require some good funding to get them facilitated so we could do this. So I'm going to be putting together a proposal. I know Holly McCann has posted something where she's looking at the models, the transition models for Grail leadership that would allow for some of this also. So I have a call with Holly on Friday, but I would love to get on calls regarding the Holosourcing and the mother funds and all of this wonderful financing. So I got some new language I think really will help kind of use that, what did Buckminster Fuller call love is metaphysical gravity? Well, there's a method of Aikido. It takes the direction the flow of money was going and spirals it into a much more distributed, synergetic model.
Yes, and also that was part of Mark Kane's model as well, is how to funnel the money into more thriving and sustainable organizations and architectures and things like that. And we had some deep calls on that as well. So yeah,
also Juan Carlos in Social Alchemy, right? And how to use Aikido metaphysically to steer the invisible structures in our direction.
Totally, and I also relate with you, David Ellens, just so you know, I've been living, a lot of us have been living on the gift economy for a long time, but I had to let go of a lot of things, including like, you know, domains that were worth thousands upon thousands of dollars just because I couldn't maintain them because I was essentially homeless, which is really pretty much just like looking for the synergy, and that's what has been able to have me make this call. I wouldn't have been able to make this call happen if I had a job and I had a house and I had a place to live. I've been couch surfing for a few years now. So, and I had to let go of, you know, everything, almost, not quite, hopefully. I still have my body and I still have my storage unit, but a lot of the investments, like I lost all my websites and things like that. So, and a lot of my work that I've done in the past, I have lost a lot, but that it's worth it to, as long as I can make creations that are worth it for humanity. That's the most important thing. It doesn't, things don't exactly matter. It does matter that we get fed, that we have a place to rest, but I learned to fall into community and heal deeper, and that I was actually a valuable asset to the community rather than in places before I felt used and taken for granted, and I couldn't ever get my projects going, and people never understood them. But now I'm around all of you guys who understand them, and then I would have philanthropists being like, well, where's your project? Like I've had so many people interested in my projects, but then I don't have anything to share, or you know, the opposite, where I'm like trying to get started and then people just want to take. So I really think that the synergy is happening here and really being organized about it, and I really appreciate Mark, your architecture of these, and I would love to get more of these things so that it's, you know, in architectural format that we can interweave with. And Bret and Andrea, I so look forward to a new call, and David, looking forward to more of what we create. Thank you, Leo, for the coherence field space there. Love it. That's the coherence that's reading our energy. And so awesome that Leo just showed up. We were asking, he came on before. Hello, Leo.
Yeah. Hey, just thought I'd share with you that as soon as that discussion turned to money, beginning with Mark's chat about the investors, we have and are currently experiencing a very heavy coherence in the red and blue fields. And at a level that is just, usually something like this might come in for a moment, but this has been ongoing for like the last since Mark started talking.
It's here. It's fully here.
I absolutely love that. I'm going to have
Keep
to
talking, Mark.
I'm going to have to get off the call. So I just want to out. I'd love to talk to you guys if we can organise that in the week. I've also got a call coming up with Holly. I work with Juan Carlos all the time, and this is why I think getting coordinated is crucial, so we're not all doubling up. I think that so if the sooner we can have that conversation around how maybe also conversations with Mark Kane, who was here, around how they can facilitate the kinds of stuff we're talking about. So I think the sooner we can start to have some coordination, the better.
Let's do a mural board.
And then also with you, Denise, I'm thinking with and Mark, the philanthropist, I think it's also how we convey this is about a minimum viable ecosystem. You know, it's not just but added to those other MVs that you had, Denise. Yeah. And that's what's unique about it. And we've struggled in the past to communicate that. It's not only because we weren't ready, but I think, like you're saying, we are now. The synergy is here. I had a vision last week where my guys were showing me how all the pieces of the wheel were starting to fill up. And, you know, on our whole journey, we've never had conversations like this. We used to be alone. I'm sure all of you felt that alone. We'd be talking like, what are you talking about? But just to all be here and all be speaking about the same thing and understanding and having had that experience. My guys were like, if you guys hadn't had that, you don't understand the scarcity that's beneath money. The scarcity is operating beneath money all the time. So it's important to be grateful. I know it's not easy, David, when you can't eat. I get it. But just to stay in that space. But I'm closing with a lot of stuff at once. I have to go, but thank you so much for this beautiful space. It's totally what lights me up to have so much spaciousness for people to share. I want to come and do the same for others. It's absolutely what Synergy is about. I haven't seen it for a long time, Denise. I'm so grateful for creating it and others who were involved in creating it. And yeah, out to arranging calls and moving on to the next steps and sending you, David, lots of love. You sent me a broken the other day. I'm still traumatized by the fact that Superman doll. Like, you literally upset me, David. Like, for the whole. That's another story, but it's nice to see you with that.
I got more. Don't worry. I have a few of them. So this one bounces. The other one doesn't bounce so well. It isn't soft. So the other one, I had a slight accident in the middle of the night. 4 in the morning.
Thank you, Andrea and Bret, for your offering, for your presentation, for being here. We've been so looking forward to it because we know it's really helping tie a lot of the threads together and the energies, and really appreciate your overall vision and, you know, how we can really synergize and create together. And thank you all for your energy. Love you, love you, love you. Yes, Michael.
Just briefly before you guys hang up, maybe we should just do a metaphysical Aikido group, since the thing was kind of saying something, and I really want to learn more about the languages. We all have our different words that we've learned that are really, really important to upgrade our thinking. It would be amazing to also talk about new languages that might help in that regard, different types of, and yeah, just metaphysical Aikido. I'd like to learn more about that, and yeah, that'd be fun.
Yes, so I mean, I'm available tomorrow if anyone wants to talk tomorrow, or Tuesday. I try to keep my weekends generally off, but we can also do maybe weekend call, but it would be really good to start getting more action going.
So I wish to add something here. So Denise, you mentioned from maybe ongoing calls can be like do calls, right? So on those calls, I feel like if we could have those calls on a whiteboarding platform like Miro, every week we can have that follow-up notes of the call, and it would help us to chart out and chronologically, you know, what's been discussed. And when we come out to that, you know, we've been like seeing that would really help us to like have this in a beautifully streamlined flow.
That's why I'm suggesting Friday too, because we kind of get a little bit like all excited, and then we need to integrate a little bit on Thursday. So if Friday would work for any of you, and then we have the Tuesday call And you know, then we have the weekend to kind of like marinate in a lot of what we've been going on, and then we have the week for our regular calls with each other and things like that. So people can make a Friday call with a Miro board. We can work on it together. I'm really grateful for you recommending that, Mohan. That must mean you know how to work with Miro board. More people who can help, you know, draw things out and stuff, the better. So it's, you know, a few of us working on different parts together, and even putting out our parts, like, you know, David, you've got your piece, and like getting all your pieces on the Miro board and then linked to the Miro boards, and then Mohan and Bret and Andrea and mine, and just seeing how the different parts have those cogs of the wheel coming together. And, so, yeah. All right.
Plan. It's lovely seeing you all together. It's really beautiful to see the family tribe coming together finally. I'm so grateful. I love you all so much, and thank you for everything all of you do and all of your sacrifices. It's really, yeah, I just love you. That's why I'm wearing this today.
Energizes.
We have to go. We'll be in touch.
Speak soon. Bye, everyone.
Rest well, everyone. Good night.
Bye.
Okay, amazing. So there we can close the call. Grateful for all your energies and coming back here. David, thank you for coming back, even though you're so busy. Mohan being here from India, like what time is it for you? Michael, always awesome to see you. And Mark, thank you.
Thank you, Dennis, for a great job. Bye-bye. See you.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.